Good evening. I would like to call to order today's meeting, June 18, 2019, Little Rock City Board of Directors. We would like to welcome those in attendance as well as those watching at home and live streaming online. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Director Hendricks, Director Richardson, Director Webb, Director Peck, Director Hines, Director Wright, Director Compuris, Director Fortson, Director Adcock, Vice Mayor Wyrick, Mayor Stola.
Mayor Scott.
Now, Susan, now there's a lot of reasons why we don't look a lot alike. You know, I'm kind of tall. It's all right. I know it's one of those days. I'm ready whenever you are. Present. It's all right. Let me now, would be recognizing Director Dean Compuris for the invocation, but he is yielded to our parliamentarian, Mr. Tom Carpenter.
Will you join me? There are many decisions we have to face tonight. These decisions deal with viewpoints from really good people who have really big differences. And we come as a board to make a decision that we think is in the best interest of all. Let us accept the views of others as sincere and good. Let them accept our views in our votes as what we truly believe is the best for all. If we can see the good in each other, we can walk away from here as friends. Amen.
Amen. May y'all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have several presentations, and we will start off first for our Arkansas Safe Drive Laws course completion certificate presentation. Sergeant Jacob Tobler will present the certificates. Tobler, as well as Edward. Sergeant Tobler will present them. So, Sergeant Tobler. Tobler. Sorry about that. No, it's Tobler. There is Tobler. All right. All right. I'm just listening to Vice Mayor Wyrick. You know, you got to listen to us.
Mayor, members of the board, I am pleased to come here today again for our to present these certificates. For those who do not know, we offer through the program Working Together in the Community, we offer a class in Spanish on driving laws and safe driving for members of the community who wish to attend. It's free and open to anyone who wishes to come. Obviously, since I'm presenting it in Spanish, you have to understand what I'm saying, but we have some of the members of the community who participated in the class who are coming to receive their certificate of participation on this evening. Mayor, would you like to come down and congratulate them?
Yes.
Alejandro Cortina. Blanca Barcenas. Do I need to wait, Lamar? Okay. Byron Yol or Biron? Biron Yol. Efraín Mendoza. Graciela Rodriguez. JB Paul. ¿Cómo se pronuncia? Paul, pero JB. ¿Sí? Ok. Lo siento. María Mendoza. María Guido. ¿Es Guido o Guido?
Guido.
Guido, ok, muy bien. Mario Tavares. Gracias por participar. Merly Prado Ibarra. Merly? No. Walter Queales. Gracias por participar. William Betanco. Usted. ¿Hay dos William Betanco? Oh, William Betanco. Gracias. Merly? Okay. Merly Prado Ibarra. Janelli Escobar. Amelia González. And thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Once again, I'd like to congratulate these people who participated and for y'all's support. Quiero darle felicidades a las personas que participaron y por venir aquí para recibir sus certificados. Gracias. Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor.
I want to ask you, would you tell me what was it, and the reason why I'm asking this question is because I attended one of the commission meetings last night, and tell me, this certificate will do what for the?
It's just a certificate of participation. It just says that they came and participated in the class.
Okay, but they're not, do they have driver's license?
No, ma'am.
Oh, that was the concern, that's
Yes,
all I
ma'am.
want to know, thank
No,
you.
the purpose is that anyone who attends, hopefully it will make them a better driver, whether they can get a driver's license or not. If
But
they're
they do-
documented, then hopefully the class will help them pass the test.
But they do not have a license at this time, that was my concern.
No, not from getting the
Thank you,
certificate. No,
thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Downstairs. Oh, okay. Just, 1 second. Sorry about that. We'll now have a bicycle-friendly community committee update by Mr. Edward Casey.
Hello, how are you? Mr. Scott, Board Director, Board Meetings, how are you? My name is Edward Casey. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Edward Casey. I am an LCI bicycle instructor and also a friendly driver program teacher. And I'm here to talk to you and to make you aware of the need for better bicycle and pedestrian safety in our city. Although Arkansas has become, no. That's right. Although Arkansas has a bronze designation with the League of American Bicyclists, we have nearly 2.5 times the amount of bicycle crashes with 18 times the number of fatalities. Arkansas is ranked the 19th most dangerous city for pedestrians. So when I say we have a bronze designation, the League of American Bicyclists designates cities according to their participation in bicycle programs. In Arkansas, the city of Little Rock is a bronze designation, and we're trying to become silver. But in the rankings, it shows that we are 2.5 times more fatalities than those of silver-ranked cities in the city of Little Rock, and we're also 19th in most fatalities, which is very high considering the size of our city and our participation. The results from a survey show some of the reasons why more do not ride bikes in Arkansas. Many say the traffic is too heavy. We have dangerous intersections. Motorists don't exercise caution around cyclists. Lack of bike facilities, bike lanes, paths, and wide shoulders create fear for bikers in the city of Arkansas. But what does that cause? With less people riding bikes, it causes some health concerns with us being inactive. And one of those, we're the highest in high school obesity, third most inactive state, we're the seventh most obese state, and the third highest hypertension rate in the states. Little Rock is the 9th most obese metro area in the country. Little Rock citizens should not have to rely. Sorry, this isn't working. Some people say, why don't people just drive? There are those that really just don't like people who bike. They don't want them on our streets, and they ask the question, why don't people just drive, and why do they have to ride bikes in the first place? Some people don't have that option, and some people just feel like they deserve to ride a bike. The citizens shouldn't rely on cars for transportation solely. They should have the right to ride and have the need of forms of other transportation. Some people are too young. Some people no longer drive because of their age, and some can't afford a car or just need physical activity, and some are disabled. There's some safety inequality also in our city in regards to bike riding, bike safety, and pedestrians. This need is better for the need for better pedestrians and bike safety is especially prominent among African American citizens, who are 3 times more likely to suffer from an accident or fatality in our city. I want to bring your attention to one of the current efforts to address these issues. It's called the Friendly Driver Program. The ultimate goal is to contribute to a larger city effort to improve the health, workforce, and economic development of our city. We also want to make people aware of the rules and regulations that bikers have to adhere to, so the drivers understand and know why we do what we do as bikers. And that awareness will make them understand and be more compassionate and be safer on the roads with bikers, and just have a better outlook on bikers and won't get so angry Friendly Driver Program was funded by the AARP Livable Communities Grant as well as the Road to Zero grant. The program has been taught 45 times. We've had over 400 participants. We have it available for individual drop-ins and for organizations. Any organization that has a fleet, any kind of fleet vehicles, can have the Friendly Driver Program taught to them just to give them more information about the rules and regulations in regards to bikes and biking and why bikers behave the way that they do on the road so they can be aware. The impact of the Friendly Driver Program so far. It's had a 155 increase in understanding and how to drive around bikes and pedestrians. It's had a high satisfaction rate, understandable and useful, 4.5 out of 5. This is from a survey that was taken after the driver program. Instructor knowledge and helpfulness got a 4.5. Would people recommend this course to friends? 92% said yes. Does this encourage people to walk or bike? 58% say they would feel more comfortable walking and biking on streets as a result of the program. And my experience in the classes that I was able to teach, people came to me and said they didn't realize why bikes behave the way that they did. Why do they ride in the middle of the road? Why do we have to ride behind them? Why don't they ride on sidewalks? All these questions are answered in this program. And just knowing this can change a person's whole attitude about bikers. And it makes it safer on the road. Awareness is key and critical. If you have any questions.
Yes. Director Richardson?
Thank you, Mayor. Not so much as a question, but an observation. I think that the cars-only culture, the infrastructure is a great challenge, and I think when some of us has done revitalization efforts to put bike lanes in parts of our community, we were criticized by saying nobody rides bikes over here. Well, they don't have a place, they don't have a bike lane to ride bike, they don't have bikes. And I think it's really, really important for communities south of 630 where we have food deserts, where we have a disproportionate number of convenience stores that sell junk food, disproportionate number of liquor stores. And you made reference to a high school obesity rate, but I want to challenge those of us who are aware and knowledgeable enough to know that we have one of the highest childhood obesity rates, not just in the state, but in the country. And I think it's a great challenge for us to encourage biking for health reasons, for us to encourage it for environmental reasons. So I want to thank you for your presentation. I think you hit on all the points that we need to be mindful of and understand that this is a challenge for us to encourage our community to make those infrastructure changes, to make biking available to all communities. And I think Director Peck a couple of weeks ago made reference to a bike repair program we have on 22nd and Peyton. Is that correct? And I met with a couple of gentlemen Saturday, on a hot Saturday, to look at emulating that in other parts of our community so we can encourage biking and we can make sure we have these kinds of programs and we have biking safety in our community. We're improving the health of our community, particularly south of 630. I mean, we have a can't say high enough times, childhood obesity rates, which should be a concern to a number of us, disproportionate number of convenience stores, food deserts, and places where we have some of the worst health issues in our community. So I want to thank you for what you're doing and continue to do the great work that you're doing and those who are working with you. Thank you for your presentation.
Director Peck?
Thank you, Mayor. Edward, thank you so much for the presentation. And if a civic group or organization wanted to have a class taught, how do they go about getting in touch, or who do they get in touch with?
Well, John.
So say it out loud so people on television will know who John is. I bet there's more than one John out there.
John, I'm very sorry. I mispronounce your name every single time.
And he works for the city. A lot of people don't know we have a biking coordinator that works for the
John
city.
Lewandowski is the biking coordinator for the city, and if you get in touch with him, and also there's a website where you can log on and, what is that website again? littlerock.gov/friendly driver. You can go on and you can actually see the teachers who teach the class, and you can sign up for the times that the class will be taught as well.
How long is the class?
45 minutes.
Oh, it's quick, it's
Yeah,
great.
it's a pretty quick class.
Thank you. And Director Richardson, yes, so actually, that's a great project at Fire Station Number 3, and I wish I could make these pictures larger, but one of the firefighters there sent me some pictures from this weekend of young people playing basketball. There's a half court there, people attempting to learn how to use the bike repair station. We need to do some training there. Lots of bikes. This is over there at 22nd and Peyton, exactly the kind of area where we need to be. And actually, this was paid for by 2 individuals who would like to remain anonymous, and they have told me they want to do more. So if you build it, they will come. But so thanks for the presentation.
And I believe they're in here tonight, Director Peck, and I think that's one of the ways we can improve relationships with our community and public safety officials. So we want to make sure we have those opportunities for that connection, that interaction as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Wright?
Yes. Would this be available to like after-school program kids in middle school?
It can be. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And we encourage it, actually, because if you teach them how to ride a bike, they adhere to all the same rules that a car has to
Okay.
adhere to, and that kind of helps them segue on to driving.
Okay. Well, I'll talk with the program coordinator and see if we can't integrate this into her curriculum so that you all can come out and teach the kids about how to ride safely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Casey. I do appreciate you
Thank
and
you.
your efforts as a citizen to our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. As we see, we have a presentation about our golf course due diligence update. 2 weeks ago, when we had our budget amendment passed to help put our city back on solid fiscal ground as chief stewards of our budgeting process, we made certain that we would address that. And part of that, the city board voted on a policy to address golf resources. And per that policy was to cease golf operations at 2 golf courses and then to revitalize those golf courses within existing park mechanism. And so one of the things that I committed to the city board that before any management decision was made, that we would do some due diligence. We've been doing due diligence for quite some time, and throughout that 2-week process, we've continued to look at things from a legal perspective. We looked at things from a visioning perspective. And so today, we're going to discuss the due diligence and forthcoming decisions, and wanted to make certain that the city board was aware of everything as we previously discussed 2 weeks ago. And so what we'll now have is kind of our concept of how we revitalize, reimagine, and reinvest in our public parks here at the city of Little Rock as we look towards the future. With that being said, John Eckert, our Director of Parks, is going to kind of give his feedback on due diligence that's been done since our last board meeting. And he will stress that he is on a tight timeline. He has a 8 o'clock flight. I believe he's going on vacation. Is it vacation? It's going on vacation. He cannot miss this flight. I've already admonished him that I was surprised that he does not have TSA pre-check yet. But he's here. But he has his team, his well capable team of Mark and Leland who are here. That's going to sub in for him at the appropriate time that he has to depart. John.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. I'm here tonight to give you an update on our golf operations and to give recommendations for moving forward. Over the past 6 months or so, there has been much conversation about municipal golf in the city of Little Rock, and most recently, a decision was made to repurpose 2 of our 4 municipal courses. With the decision made to repurpose 2 golf courses, we started analysis of the 4 existing golf courses to provide a recommendation to management about which 2 courses that we suggest repurposing and which 2 courses provide the greatest long-term potential for success for municipal golf in the city. My recommendation is based on several key factors, which include the following. 1 is a financial analysis. The economics of our golf operations is the first and most important factor. We were trending in an increasingly negative position with rounds played going down and subsidies going up. A couple key points to point out. 120 to 140,000 rounds are needed for the 4 courses to break even. In 2018, there were just under 50,000 rounds played total between the 4 courses. subsidy of municipal golf has grown from $134,000 in 2006 to over $1.2 million in 2018. The second factor, consultants analysis. In the fall of 2018, the city started the process of hiring a consultant to review our golf operations. The city commissioned 5 Pars LLC to perform a study on our municipal golf operations and to offer data-backed options for reducing the subsidies of municipal golf. The results of the study were informative but not surprising. What the consultants confirmed was that golf has been in significant decline over the last decade, and that city subsidies of municipal golf have risen dramatically over the same time frame. Within their recommendations, it was made clear that out of the 4 courses, Reziman Golf Course was the most viable of the current facilities. Reziman is a premier asset with riverfront location and the smallest subsidy of the 4 courses. The consultant further explained that the First Tee facility is arguably one of the best golf assets in the city, and that the golf facility has the most upside. These 2 courses were suggested by the consultants as courses to keep and to reinvest in to achieve long-term success. The 2 courses that were suggested for repurposing by the consultants was Hyman and War Memorial Golf Course. The third factor that we consider was use and course conditions. Hyman Golf Course in 2018 had just under 11,000 rounds played in that calendar year, with the average daily play at this course of 28 golfers. The course encompasses 210 acres, which has significant floodway issues that prevent improvement of the course and create a significant periods of closure of the course on an annual basis. Approximately 14 holes are located within the floodway of Brody Creek and Fush Creek. Hyman is located adjacent to the Western Hills property, which will undergo a large-scale park renovation starting this fall. War Memorial sits on 80-plus acres in the heart of the city of Little Rock. In 2018, this course had just under 12,000 rounds played in that calendar year, which relates to an average usage of approximately 32 people per day. The golf course is a 4,500-yard par 64 course, which has seen declining play over the past decade. Additionally, it serves as a parking lot for large stadium events that closes the course for extended periods and creates significant damages to the course, depending mostly on weather. In the broadest terms, approximately 290 acres of parkland is held for use by an average of 60 people per day throughout the year. With that said, with given the task of providing a recommendation about which 2 golf courses to repurpose, I would counter with my recommendation for which 2 areas have the most opportunity for revitalization. And these courses would be Hyman and War Memorial Golf Course. I truly believe that these 2 locations represent a tremendous opportunity to re-energize and to revitalize parkland that has been on the decline in usage over the past couple of decades. To further illustrate the opportunities for these 2 courses, I've worked closely with Parks Design Manager Leland Couch to provide possibilities and visuals for talking points for what this land could represent. At this time, I would ask that Leland join me to go over these vision plans briefly before I close.
Leland, please approach.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the board. I have been asked recently to develop a couple of revision plans for War Memorial and Hyman. I want to stress that these are very high-level plans. These are done relatively quickly, but with a lot of background and experience over the last, say, 20 years of looking at these parks and the possibilities. So I have a couple of statements on each, and I have a vision plan that we'll show for each one. If you could start with the War Memorial Park. Again, these are revision plans, so these are just large bubbles. These are big concepts, big, great ideas. There's nothing that can't be moved around or anything in that manner. But just to say, War Memorial Park, existing parkland, is divided into currently active, dedicated, large tracts of land, such as the golf course, the stadium, the zoo, little to no passive recreation. Repurposing the golf area of 80-plus acres would allow the development of a potential central park. This would create a long list of active and passive recreation activities, something for many and all users to enjoy. The current park users are typically there to have one experience. For example, they would go to have a round of golf or go to the zoo or go to the stadium, and then they would leave. The new idea with creating a central park would create something, repurposing the War Memorial Park to Central Park to limit those one-time experiences and make a collective experience for all. So an entire family can go and enjoy new activities such as ball fields, skate parks, dog parks, bike parks, greenway trail systems, multi-purpose fields. These are just a few new items to be considered for this 80-plus acres. Moving on to Hyman Park. Again, this is the same type of plan. This is a large scaled version of a bubble plan, very vision plan. The white boundary, this is a much larger acreage, so the white line there actually gives us our property boundary. There's Brody Creek Park, which is in the far upper left-hand corner, and Hindman Park, which is currently a neighborhood park on the far right. The bulk of the park is the golf course, and so Hyman Park is dedicated primarily to golf, forested parkland, and then a large part of it is dedicated or is used as the Fush and Brody Creek floodways. Repurposing the golf area of 200-plus acres allows to start developing vision plans of a large destination park that could be focused on several large new park assets that could also double as large revenue-generating opportunities. A few of these ideas or assets could be such as a championship disc golf course, soft surface trail corridor for cyclocross, cross-country events, professional mountain bike trails that could be used for NICA events and other racing events. These are just some ideas, and these are all could be complemented with a smaller amenities such as a destination playground, lake, pavilions, bike park, and multi-purpose fields. Another idea is also looking at the potential for water trails on Fush. That was something that came up in our study for our new ongoing master plan. In summary, I'd like to say that repurposing these golf courses provides Little Rock Parks and Recreation an opportunity to create two different parks, different from each other, but becoming park hubs of a larger park system. Not only could these provide new recreational activities, but many items that are largely missing in our current park inventory. They could also play a larger role in the beginning or the terminus of a much larger trail greenway corridor between both parks. I want to emphasize that nothing's been discussed of this, but Hindman and War Memorial are north and south in the city, and they sit on greenways that the city currently owns that would be ripe for potential for greenway trail systems, mountain bike trail systems to connect. So Hindman could be a hub and War Memorial could be a hub, and then you would connect potentially 10 parks in between them with these trail systems. And the greater idea is that you're creating a connection for the entire city. So that's kind of my final statement for these high-level vision plans as a starting point for this process.
Thank you, Leland. John?
Thank you, Leland. With that said, I would like to emphasize that all four of these courses and parkland will play a vital role in our future success as a park system and as a city. And moving forward, we will have a staff dedicated to programming these areas in the short term as we go forward. To conclude, my recommendation to you, Mayor, and to City Manager would be to reinvest into the First Tee facility and Rebsamen Golf Course and to revitalize Hyman and War Memorial Golf land for broader city usage.
Thank you so much, John. We have a few questions from the directors. And John, I know you got to catch a flight. Have a good vacation. Director Wright. Or did you not? Oh, it was left over. Yes, ma'am. Director Adcock.
Yes. Leland, did you look at price tags on this?
No, ma'am. This I have not looked at any price tags. This is completely a vision. This is a large idea. It's hard to start looking at price tags when We don't even know, like, say, how many ball fields would fit in a certain area that this bubble is. So this is just a generating the big picture, the big idea.
What time frame do you see this in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, 20 years?
That's a great question.
I'll take that question. Merely, one of the things I just kind of want to do a high level, and then we'll get back to the director's questions. If the city board will recall, how do we even get here? We understand that for quite some time, in previous years, there's been some fiscal issues with the city. We had a $7 million loss in 2018. We utilized in 2018 $5 million of one-time funds for reoccurring revenues. And part of that situation is we had to have a hard look at our city budget and how do we move forward to make certain that we have fiscal stewardship and put us back on sound financial footing. Part of that process, a host of decisions were made in the budget amendment process to come forth with a budget amendment to the 2019 budget. Part of that was policy decisions. One of those policy decisions was the city board voted to cease golf operations that are currently held at 2 of our public parks. And so part of that policy decision then leads to, once you cease golf operations, we still own that public park property. And we want to make certain, in the best interest of our city, that there is a plan, there is a vision for how we move forward. And so as a result of the policy decisions, and one of the things that, I restate, committed to the city board, that once we make a decision, one, it has to be some due diligence. There's been due diligence. Tom has done a lot of legal due diligence that he'll share later. Leland and John Eckert, they merely did due diligence, but also presented a plan for how do we, again, as I shared earlier, revitalize, reimagine, and reinvest in those public park areas, being particularly based on the recommendation that has now been proposed to myself and to the city manager, being Hyman and War Memorial Park. What do we do next? Because we've already made a decision on two or four golf courses to cease golf operations. Staff is now recommending that those two are Hyman and War Memorial. And so if management does accept their recommendations, we have to have some sort of a plan for day one. As we all understand that many of the actions and decisions that we made 2 weeks ago as it relates to the board goes into effect on June the 28th. So we have to have some sort of a plan of action for those areas. So what John just recently shared with you, I want to kind of go now in two forms. John basically shared with us how do we get here from those policy decisions, and what is the best recommendation from someone who has been involved in parks for quite some time. He made the recommendation. In addition to that, long term, so we got two cases, short term, long term. Long term, Leland is now sharing long-term visioning for those two parks. In the short term, John shared that there will be a dedicated team that are going to be working to program, if the proposed recommendation is accepted, there will be an internal team dedicated to program park activities at the two proposed parks. That's short term, meaning starting June 29th. And then as we move forward, we will work towards the long-term plan of the visioning that Leland has just shared, which does cost money. And we have to figure out how do we pay for it, of course. And so we will be tasked as a team to figure that out. I think one of the things that we heard from Director Peck is we have to make certain that we involve the community. We had a month-and-a-half long discussion about budgeting and policy decisions, and everyone was well aware that we have to make a decision on two golf courses. Well, we talked about that for a month and a half, but now, as Director Peck shared, how do we have a city in the park? How do we revitalize, reimagine, reinvest in our city? And so we will now begin this visioning process with the community involved. And per whatever happens and whatever decision is made as it relates to the proposed recommendation, there will be a community task force that's going to be detailed to help lead the visioning process, one, on how do we get to the plan that Leland's talking about based on what we also receive from community feedback, and how do we pay for it as well. And so that will be a part of the community task force that will be focused on quality of life for those particular areas of the proposed recommendations. So that's in a nutshell, short term and long term. Short term, based on the recommendations from John Eckert, is recommendation to cease golf operations at 2 particular golf courses that are still public parks and public land. If that decision is accepted, then what happens on June 29th? June 29th means that we will have a dedicated team of staff and personnel to make certain that those 2 park areas are still operational, that are still maintained and cleaned, and has a great apparatus for quality of life for our youth and for our seasoned brethren. Vice Mayor Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a huge disappointment for me in regards that we're talking about closing Hunman. And I don't think the study was very fair whenever they said that this golf course was in a floodway. I went on a listening tour for a couple of weeks, and I'll have some questions for you, Leland, for a couple of weeks talking to some of the golfers that were there. And one of the things we talked about was, yeah, the water will come up and it'll go down, but it doesn't prohibit playing golf there. So the study just flat said this is in a floodway, and it's just not a good place to play golf. But when you look at Leland's diagram here, and you're talking about putting all these amenities in here, this is for dry work. I mean, it's not for being underwater. So we're already, by doing this arrangement, we're already saying that this ground is stable enough, it's not in a floodway, we can add these amenities to it. So I don't believe that the consultants were fair whenever they depicted this as being in a floodway. We have a couple of creeks that come in here and meet. As you can see, the white space between the 2 blue areas, that's the bridge that goes up to the clubhouse, and that goes underwater. So if it goes underwater today, then it's going to go underwater tomorrow if you have this plan. That's not a big problem with the golfers. They tell me that the greens get a little bit wet, but they just don't put their carts there. They don't drive their carts up there. This golf course has been into action for 60 years, and it's played the best and it's been in the best shape for the last 20 years. We've got a great group of golfers that come here, and all they wanted was to see some improvements. They wanted some trees cut. They wanted some of the creeks to be dredged so that the water would flow faster, and they wanted to play golf here. And many of them that I talked to, I know they thought I was stalking them because I'd ask them, what do you think about Hyman? And there's a love for this. There's a love for this field to play. There's a cohesive group that plays golf there all the time, some of them 3 and 4 times a week. And I think it's unfortunate that the consultant did not give us a buy on this. The other thing I want to say is John alluded to Western Hills is going to take on some new development. Okay, Western Hills is an adjacent park. They were funded $1 million from the tax initiative that we passed. And they have been wanting passive recreation all these years. And I've heard a rumor that the money that's left, which is around $800,000, is that you're going to expand over into Western Hills with more golf. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I'm hearing. The neighborhood is not going to like it. We've got 5 neighborhoods that are around this area, and this may be something that they're interested in, but I think we have to think about the folks that are playing golf there now today. They're telling me that they won't go to Rebsam to play. They're not going to go to First Tee to play. They're going to go to Lindsay Court, or they're going to go to Maumelle Country Club to play. You're not going to be increasing the golf participation at Rebsam. This kind of thrown me for a curve because we have a presentation as opposed to an item, and I know you've got a bunch of cards probably to talk about this item, and I don't know what the plans are, but do you have yellow cards?
Yes, and I can speak to that when you get.
Yeah, you did have white cards, but I had them change them to yellow because since it wasn't an item anymore, I didn't know which way we were going to go. But I hope the cards that you have, you will honor them and give them an opportunity to speak. And can I just ask those that are here in support of Heinemann stand? Okay. And the red shirts mean you're duffers? Yeah, Little Rock Pro Duffers. So these are hardcore golf players there. And I sent all my notes to all of y'all with pictures of some of the problems that you see at Heinemann in regards to Brody Creek going through there and the Fush. And they've not been dredged out. They've not been maintained. There's trees in Fush. The sediment in Brody Creek is so high that whenever the water does come through there with a high rain event, then it has no place to go. There's a beautiful little creek or stream that runs through the golf course that would need to have some work done on it and a few trees, and this would be a really, really great golf course. It's not ever been publicized. All the golfing has been pushed to Rebsamen instead of Heinemann, and I have to wonder, is it because it's south of I-630? Is that why we pushed them to Rebsamen instead of Southwest? So with that, I think you know how I feel about this. I would love to keep Heinemann open. I'd love to keep these folks that have been playing golf there for 40 to 45 years able to continue playing golf there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Wyrick.
One other thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I have 1,500 signatures of people that wanted to keep Heinemann open, if y'all want to look at it. And they're from all over Little Rock, not just Southwest. So I can pass these and let you look at the signatures if you want to.
Yeah,
You look at them first.
you've already provided last month. Again, Vice Mayor Wyrick, just to kind of, since you did ask about the flow, clearly we will always honor public input. Again, I want to stress tonight, again, what we're hearing tonight is a recommendation to management on how we proceed with a policy decision that was made by this city board 2 weeks ago. And so the recommendation from management is to repurpose and revitalize Hyman Golf Park as well as Memorial Golf Park into a public space, public green space, which will be multifaceted based on the visioning that you see for the long term. In the short term, it's also been shared that an internal staff will be focused on programming if the management accepts the recommendation. From that point on, being June 29th, that internal staff will work aggressively to have programming for those particular park areas, which includes maintaining those park areas, but also having activities in those park areas moving forward. And in the meantime, between the short term of programming and the long term of this visioning that Leland has shared, there will be a community task force, and Vice Mayor Wyrick, because you and I both, who are both live in Southwest Little Rock, and know how passionate you are about Hyman Park, along with Director Adcock. Hopefully you will consider to be a part of that task force, because what Leland talks about, that's just something that's been going from the Parks office, not necessarily from the community. And so we're going to have a community task force that will be working intently to get community feedback on how we move forward with those particular parks. And so we'll have a community task force, and I hope you will serve on that. You can consider it. To see if we can talk about it later, whether or not you will
Well, I
determine
kind of got excited because I saw something about a golf course on there, and I thought, oh, they're going to have a 9-hole in here, but I see it's disc golf. So
Yeah, that's disc golf, I think, what you see. But also, you see the blue areas are the fisheries that I think you spoke to. But you will be asked, it'll be up to you whether or not you decide to be on that task force. But I think it'll be very important with you being a Ward 7 leader to have a stake and how that park area, that green space, is revitalized, reimagined, and reinvested in as we move forward. So that's kind of where we go from that standpoint. Secondly, as it relates to the public comment, there will be allowed, as always, the citizens' communication portion where the citizens will have opportunity to share their thoughts. And again, what Leland has shared is a draft. It also, anything that's changed from a park standpoint has to go before the Parks Commission for review and consideration before it goes back to the Board of Directors, because we do have a master plan agreement that we have to operate from a policy perspective. And so, again, the point today was to give a recommendation on what the board voted on 2 weeks ago. And 2 weeks ago, the board voted to repurpose and revitalize 2 of the 4 golf courses. Then we shared that the management would then do due diligence. Management's done due diligence. The recommendation for our parks team, who works and deals with parks every day, has made a recommendation of those 2 particular parks, and also shared a plan of action if those 2 are accepted by management, what should go forward on June the 29th for the short term. And then for the long term, there will be a community task force to solicit feedback, not only from the task force, there also will be a external poll that will be done, a survey that will be done via social media. There will be some feedback portal that will go on the littlerock.gov website. And again, what we're doing today and what we've done as a board 2 weeks ago, we are now making decisions for the next 20 to 30 years. And when you make a decision for the next 20 to 30 years in the immediate, sometimes and all the time, decisions are hard. And that's what we were elected to do, is to make hard decisions, not decisions that gets us a lot of fanfare. But we have to make decisions on what moves forward going towards the future. And so that's the next step of the process. Director Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the Ward 3 Director, I'd like to have that same opportunity that Vice Mayor Wire does, since War Memorial's in Ward 3, to participate in that task force. But I also have a question. A couple of weeks ago, I think we asked about the parks master plan, and if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if this would be for the manager or for Mark, I think we were told that the master plan was back and that there were a couple of questions, but it was just about ready to be presented. Is that accurate?
Mark.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. We pretty much got it to a point where we can release it, but there's still some other things we would need to tie down, so it might be the next quarter that we deliver this master plan.
Can I ask, and I don't know, you may prefer not to answer this, but I'd like to know, in the master plan, does it talk about repurposing some of the golf courses?
Yes, it does.
And does it have a vision in the master plan for what we would do with those golf courses?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
What Leland did is a continuation of the idea that we need to think of some new ways to revitalize these parks.
Thank you. And one more question. When it was stated that the city attorney had been doing due diligence about the closing of the golf courses, I guess I didn't understand, maybe I missed something about how that was related to closing the golf courses.
Director Webb, what I was asked to do to look at the property for both War Memorial and the property for Heinemann. We know about the property for Repsamen, and I'm more familiar than I want to be with the property for First Tee, but there had been comments that the properties were subject to reverter clauses that had been given to the city. There are no reverter clauses as to Heinemann, nor are there any reverter clauses as to War Memorial. Then there was a comment made that as to the Heinemann properties, there was a $50,000 payment to the city that had to be spent on a particular purpose and could result in a reverter. It was $50,000 that had to be spent for parks purposes, and that has happened.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. That's it.
Thank you, Director Webb. Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too live in Southwest Little Rock, and I'm supportive of BJ's points. And in fact, I played at Heinemann on Father's Day. Didn't do too well, but I played out there. I find it interesting that Jones' point about us not having any kind of study or any kind of awareness or any kind of information on the cost, the long-term cost, is really interesting since we're basing these recommendations somewhat on the physical implication. I find that quite interesting. I also find it quite interesting that we've had a number of people make reference to comments up here with respect to First Tee. And I've heard people, even a couple of my colleagues, say that we're bad-mouthing First Tee. And I think sometimes the things that we hear and see has the meaning that we choose to give it. Because I haven't heard anybody badmouth First Tee. I've heard them question the city's relationship with First Tee as opposed to War Memorial and Hyman. And I'm supportive of keeping both those open because I think they're the most diverse courses we have in our city in terms of age, race, gender. It'd be hard-pressed to find any more diversity in any one of those courses. And why haven't we looked at the long-term costs? And there's questions been presented to John. I hate he had to leave with respect to people being told they were going to be out of a job at the end of June, June 28th, and we were told that was being done at every golf course. But it seems like that decision had already been made, and that 2 weeks ago we already knew what we were going to get tonight. So to me, what we've been doing the last couple of weeks is perfunctory at best, and at worst it's the illusion of inclusion because it seems like those decisions have already been made, and we've been told that they hadn't been made. We're just going to do due diligence and wait for these recommendations. So there's been some internal staff changes in Parks and Rec. There's been some external notification that suggests that these decisions had already been made before they were even brought to us. And I find it quite interesting, to say the least, in terms of us having involvement. And of course, it's a policy decision, and ultimately the vote is going to occur up here. And I want to echo BJ's point. I'm not supportive of closing Hyman or War Memorial. I think they're the most diverse courses we have in our city. I think we should be proud of those courses, and I think we should be proud of the utilization of those courses. And I find it interesting with respect to War Memorial and the young people down here a couple of weeks ago. I think they were Think Big Group, is that what they were called? And were they chamber financed? Part of a chamber-led group of young people, young professionals. And I would find it really interesting if we turn War Memorial Park land into park. Would there be a guarantee we wouldn't have any future development on that land? And I doubt if we can make that assertion, or we can make that commitment to say we won't have any future private sector development, because that's prime property. It's easily accessible, and I too, like BJ, find it's kind of disappointing, especially with respect to us talking about community involvement and due diligence and board involvement. It's somewhat disappointing. And were the consultants chosen by sole source, or RFP or RFQ?
Well, a few things, Director Richardson. You did share a little of things. I want to make sure they're all addressed. First and foremost, this city board, not including me, in 2018 contracted the golf study consultants that provided the recommendations. So that's number one. So you voted, you being this entire board, except for me because I was not on the board at that particular point in time, voted for the golf study consultants that provided the recommendations to our park staff. So that's number one. Number two, this entire board on 2 weeks ago voted, nearly unanimous, voted on the budget amendment, which called for, from a policy decision process, that 2 of the 4 public courses would be repurposed, not closed, but to be repurposed. And so when we talk about that, meaning is those are all public green park spaces. And this board voted to do that. It was also shared with this board, the difference in how we understand governance. There's a difference between policy and management, and that management would do due diligence, which we've done, and the management would come back and share with this board which decision would be made as it moves forward. So that's number 2. As you move from that standpoint, clearly this is due diligence that has been begun and has been shared with the board before a decision is made. So the board is very aware of what's going on from that standpoint. And so since when we talk to the long-term costs, we have looked into long-term costs. The long-term cost is that we being the city of Little Rock, could not financially sustain 4 public golf courses. That was the policy decision that was made 2 weeks ago, that we had to move from 4 to 2. So irrespective if we can't get to the long-term visioning, we still can't sustain 4 golf courses. Just can't. That's the reason why the board voted on that 2 weeks ago. And so in the long term, as it goes to that, on June 28th, this board voted that we were going to move from 4 to 2. And so things have to happen on June 29th. Life does not stop with the city of Little Rock. And so now we are sharing that whichever of the 2 of the 4 golf courses are decided upon, what is going to be the plan of action for those 2 public green spaces to be well kept, maintained, and make certain that youth and our seasoned brothers and sisters are able to still access that parkland and utilize it 24/7. So that's the long-term cost. Now, as we look towards the future, there's a cost associated with the future. And so you have to include the community with the future. And that's this community task force that we are sharing about. So the community will be involved with the next step in the decision, and this board as well, because as we understand that anything that's done within the master park agreement, number one, has to first go towards the Parks Commission for review and consideration, and then once they are shared that information, and then comes before the board for the board to make a policy decision.
Yes, sir.
So the board would make a policy decision on the future of these golf courses. As it relates finally to your last statement as to the number of employees. The number of employees that were already shared, that information, we've talked through that, come from all golf courses. And due to the fact that this city of Little Rock previously has always had bumping rights, even on, there are certain people that can make a decision, city manager, correct me if I'm wrong, on June the 27th and decide that they may not want to take another position somewhere else, and it can rearrange the people who've already got a letter because of bumping rights. So there's nothing been done that you are not aware of today.
I guess my point, and great, thank you, Mayor. Sir, I think you made some excellent point. I guess my point is with respect to the notification of staff. When I asked John that question with respect to War Memorial, he assured me that notification was given to staff at all the golf courses. And I think that 2 weeks ago, I think I may have voted for us having this conversation tonight, but it goes back to the illusion of inclusion. I think 2 weeks ago, we may have already known that, and had we known that 2 weeks ago, they may have changed some of the votes up here. So, I mean, I think that, to me, that's the part where I'm finding troubling, because it seems like, to me.
Mr. Manager, could you share every individual that within golf that received a letter, and that'll share that everyone comes from all the parks?
I can't share the names, obviously, but because our HR policies are based on seniority, there were individuals at all 3 of our currently run public golf courses that got notices. And so John answered correctly that there were employees at all 3 that were notified of potential layoffs or reduction in force.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Well, I wasn't finished.
Director Richardson,
Yeah,
sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry. I just guess it's disappointing because to me, in my opinion, and allow me the right to be wrong in my opinion, it seems like we knew this 2 weeks ago. And had we been given that information 2 weeks ago, that may have changed some votes over here by putting it off for 2 weeks, or even having to do diligence, perfunctory kind of activity.
And Director Richardson, 2 weeks ago, the same golf study made the same recommendations. Nothing's changed. And I understand, again, this is a tough decision. And at the end of the day, decisions are hard. And the board made a policy decision, and management has to make a decision. And that's just how governance works. And that's part of that process. But again, all I can do is share that we have an opportunity to reimagine, reinvest, and revitalize all of our parks. I look for a day where you come to Hyman Park and there's not only the fisheries that are there that are shown, there's picnics, there are different soccer fields, there are softball fields. There is a multifaceted purpose for that entire green space, and to make certain that it's currently utilized 24/7 as best as possible, as well as with War Memorial, based on the recommendations, that we have a unifying factor in our city to bring everyone together. And again, those are recommendations that have been brought before the board for the last 2 or 3 months that this conversation has been going on. So you're right. There's not a lot of things that hasn't been before you today. I just want to continue to stress that this is not the first time that you've seen any of this.
Well, my last 2 points, and I promise you I'll sit back and just listen, because tonight we're voting on outsourcing the maintenance of 30 parks. 30 parks and to my surprise, we have 63 parks. And I think last week, Mr. Manager, I asked for what's the criteria we utilize to classify a part of our city as a park. And I think because of staffing, tonight we're going to vote on outsourcing maintenance of 30 of our 63 parks. We're voting on that tonight. So if we're going to add 2 more parks, is that going to add to the budget in terms of how many companies and/or company we're going to need to outsource this work to? And that's all depending on the size of the land we're talking about. So I just find all of this kind of it's interesting to me. I think it's quite troubling, and it's quite interesting that we're going to vote tonight on outsourcing maintenance of 2 parks, and we're going to add to the 63 parks to 2 more parks. And I still didn't get my information request with respect to how do we classify land as a park in this city. What a classification we utilize to declare that. So, Mayor, thank you for the information and the report, but I can't be supportive of this recommendation. But I thank you for the work you and the team has done on this, and Bruce and Tom and all you guys have done the work on this, but I can't be supportive of this.
And we totally respect that, Director Richardson. And again, me knowing the man that you are, I know you're going to be intimately involved in how, if the recommendations are accepted, how we make certain that the community is part of that revitalization, because you've been a stalwart as it relates to revitalizing the 12th Street corridor, and you have a lot of experience there.
Thank you, sir. And I will be involved, and even if I don't get what I desire, whatever we do, I will be involved. But
And we appreciate you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Director Hines, I believe, was next.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we all sit on opposite sides of this discussion tonight, and I can tell you, as someone who grew up playing the City of Little Rock courses, Heineman, War Memorial, Rebsman, learned how to play at the junior golf program down at Rebsman back in the late 70s, early 80s, that and being a guy that's played the sport since I was 11 years old, it's always a tough thing. But we're faced with a sport that I love that's in decline, and I've been very close to this issue as I was at UALR and did a economic study on golf prices in Central Arkansas. It gets into some fancy economic terms called price elasticity. But at the end of the day, when we've got a track record, is that when we've shut one of our city courses down, whether it be War Memorial or Hyman, to repair the greens, the play at all of our other city courses, the first tee facility included, has gone up. And I think that's one of the things that's left out of this factor, is that those 50,000 rounds don't go away. And if we improve the existing facilities that we have in Rebsman and the first tee, and hopefully one of the things we'll do with the first tee is at some point rename it, maybe change it back to Rock Creek Golf Course, which I think was its precursor name. I think the interesting thing is that everybody wants to ignore that first tee is south of the interstate. It's less than a mile, I would think, and actually some of Hyman is actually kind of contiguous with one part of the first tee property. So to envision that we couldn't have a better facility, a new home course for some of these guys, and the fact that people don't go out and play is some mistakes that were made in the past with not marketing that facility as a city course, but I think we're going to make those corrections. War Memorial has a long history. And the repurposing, and I know was talked about a long time ago, but I think trying to be open-minded, and maybe it's a little easier for me coming from a part of the city that doesn't have a great deal of parks resources. So, I think what we're trying to do is build something that's good for the whole city. It's everybody likes things to stay the same. I think there's an old Talking Heads song that the lyrics are same as it ever was. But unfortunately, financial decisions in some cases lead to a new genesis, and I think we could have something that's actually better. And I think I see a brighter future. It looks dark right now, but I think, as they say, that's always darkest before the dawn. But a dawn of some new facilities, a new way of looking at things that can possibly make this better for all involved. But I think it's bold. I think the biggest question we have to answer, and unfortunately, if we hadn't had the budget shortfall, I think some of the funding would already be there, but we'll hopefully do that. There's some organizations that, as I see, looking at Hyman, some of the mountain biking trails that have been very generous with local communities across this state and giving funding for these type projects. So I look forward to working with any groups any way I can going forward. Thank you.
Director Adcock?
Yes. I do appreciate, Mayor, you stating that the vote 2 weeks ago was not unanimous, that there was 2 of us that voted no on that. No, there was 2. And I would like to ask of Mr. Moore and Ms. Langley, after that vote was taken 2 weeks ago, I had telephone calls because there was no roll call on that, because as soon as we finished voting, the mayor asked to adjourn the meeting. So I want to make sure that the minutes show that that was not a unanimous vote, that there was 2 directors that I know of and possibly more that voted no. Also, on this proposal in front of us.
Mr. Manager, could you address that?
I think the clerk, and I think even the next day in the media, it was reported that it wasn't a unanimous vote. I believe that's how it was, and that's how it will be recorded.
That it just, you did not say 8-2?
It wasn't a roll call, so when there's not a roll call, it's a unanimous vote.
No.
That's parliamentary procedure. That's parliamentary procedure when there's not a roll call.
Mr. Carpenter, is there any way to get my vote recorded as a no on that?
Director Adcock, when the minutes come before the board to approve as to that meeting, you are free to make an amendment to amend the minutes to reflect what you think accurately happened, and if it's successful, then it would be amended.
Okay. I would suggest then that the other director do the same. And Ms. Langley, if you please help me remember when that comes before the board. Okay, on your little map in front of you, Director Wyrick pointed off the little gray thing that goes this way. That's the bridge. I was at Hyman Saturday morning, very early, visiting with the golfers. We had a tournament there, the first one, Mayor, in a long, long time that has been booked for Hyman. Everyone was excited about it. People was having to wait in line for golf carts. That bridge there was very unique because there was 5 or 6 automobiles all around that bridge, up in that little green space and back over to the right. We have lots of fishermen that fish that bridge and fish that area. So, Mr. Moore, that will not be blocked off in any way to keep people from driving back up in there and fishing, will it?
Again, I think that's an important element at Hyman, and again, this is more of a concept, just to sort of talk about what potentially could happen, but there will be a lot of community input going forward.
And Director Wyrick, I would like to see you see if we cannot make more fishing available in that area, since we no longer have Oppenheimer to fish in Southwest. And maybe one of the amenities that could have would be more fishing derbies, and just recreational fishing for people. I also want to mention, I hope somebody is keeping up with, I believe there's 7 schools that use Hyman Park, East End being one, I think Horace Mann, Central, and others that use that. So when school is getting ready to start, we need to make sure that these kids understand that they need to go to First Tee or to Refsman to play golf, if there's room for them. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And again, staff will take over the programming and make certain all that information is shared. So I want to make sure you're aware of that and from that.
Will they also make sure the space is shared? Because I understand Refsman has long lines waiting to play, and kids have a limited amount of time from school to play. So we need to make sure maybe certain days and certain times Refsman has to close down for the kids.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Leland and Mark, you did hear that, correct? Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we do, just because out of the essence of time, I want to be respectful of those who did sign up. We're going to move up the portion of the citizens' communication for specifically to those individuals who are here to talk about the golf course, and I want to start with that process. Jennifer Haas.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jennifer Haas, and I'm speaking here today in my capacity as a member of the Think Big Little Rock group. I currently serve as the Think Big Little Rock Public Safety and Governance Committee co-chair, and I'm also on the board of Create Little Rock. Both organizations aim to improve the Little Rock region in an effort to grow, attract, and retain young professionals, and I am here today to support the recommendation to repurpose the golf course at War Memorial Park. While several colleagues will speak or have spoken about the impact on the reimagining of this park that the park can have on arts, culture, and economics, I think I can speak to the impact revitalization of this park can have on increasing the social cohesion and the sense of place in the city of Little Rock. Repurposing the golf course can help create social and physical environments that promote good health and safety for an increased number of citizens over its currently designated use. Research for the Growing Neighborhood section of the Think Big Little Rock report released in 2017 revealed that the Federal Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion uses social cohesion as a key component for increasing the social determinants of health of a population. In short, the relationships that we have with each other and the physical environment have significant ramifications on our daily lives. Mental health, physical health, public safety, economic stability, and neighborhood connectivity are all impacted by these relationships. And here, the City of Little Rock has a unique opportunity to maximize the social and physical environment in a way that can promote health and public safety for the maximum amount of people. And as you know, War Memorial Park is uniquely situated in our city. It is near the geographic center. It is bordered by at least 7 different neighborhoods, and starting from the north and moving around counterclockwise, this includes Hillcrest, Hall High, Briarwood, University Park, Oak Forest, Forest Hills, and the Stiff Station Capitol View neighborhoods. Residents from each of these neighborhoods are within walking or biking distance to War Memorial. War Memorial is connected to the zoo, which is in turn connected to the Hillary Rodham Clinton Children's Library by the Jonesboro Bridge. A repurpose of the golf course with minor modifications to this bridge can increase the walkability and biking infrastructure to strengthen the draw for residents in these surrounding neighborhoods. This will result in an increase in social cohesion and a sense of place for the citizens of Little Rock. Repurposing the golf course to a multi-purpose central park will have the highest impact on the most people in this city. And for these reasons, I urge you to take advantage of this unique opportunity to repurpose the existing golf course and maximize the efficacy of War Memorial Park. Thank you.
Amanda Richardson Nipper.
Good evening, Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Wyrick, and members of the board. My name is Amanda Nipper, and as one of the co-chairs of Think Big Little Rock, a strategic visioning process launched in 2016, I'm proud to stand before you and represent more than 100 young professionals, young leaders, and volunteers who shared their free time, their perspectives, and their voice around what matters most in building overall community for young professionals in the Little Rock metro area. You'll remember from our past presentations that for several months we focused on ways that this city could be a more vibrant community for young professionals and their families. Our recommendation, which took many factors and viewpoints into consideration, includes converting Memorial Golf Course into that multi-purpose central park that Jennifer described. It could be a destination for our community's families. A couple of weeks ago, a few of my colleagues were here and shared with you what that meant most to them. I would echo their excitement about the possibility of having a vibrant Central Park atmosphere that is a destination for all from both sides of 630. I also consider you to consider the value of involving the voices of all in your community planning process as you move forward, including young people, families, neighborhood associations, and others in thinking big about what's next for that area. It could be a catalyst for so many of the innovative ideas that are focused on the future of Little Rock. Thank you.
Did you want to speak now, Dean? Okay. Just one moment. Okay, Dean.
Amanda, would you do me one favor and just remind the public what Think Big was and how many people participated and how it came into being?
Sure. So we actually got started on September 11th, 2016. By application of young professionals, volunteered and stood up and said, I want to be part of a strategic visioning process that looks at the future of Little Rock. We considered many areas, including arts and culture, public safety and governance, diversity and inclusion, economic development, and education. And each of those groups had, transportation and infrastructure. Each of those groups had 20 to 25 representatives who came together on that monthly basis to explore ideas, considerations, discuss sometimes in a spirited manner about what they felt was going to be most important to them if they were going to be a part of the future of Little Rock. We represented actually young professionals from all over Central Arkansas. We had folks from other neighboring counties, but it was really about that Little Rock metro area and what would attract and retain young professionals. Does that answer your question, sir? You want to?
And could you just bring up the makeup of the group, both racially and gender?
So we were intentionally a group that was extremely diverse. There were 4 co-chairs. My fellow co-chairs, Chris East, who is an architect by trade, Carol Wilkins, both of them who spoke a couple of weeks ago, and Antoine Phillips. We represented different parts of the city of Little Rock, and obviously different demographic backgrounds in that sense. Also, the diversity of the groups that represented those different strategic areas were purposefully brought together. The applications that were submitted were considered based on making sure that we had an accurate representation of the diversity that makes up this community.
And your one weak link was the transportation group, is that right?
No comment.
Thank you.
Hubert Gwynn. You're passing? All right. Paul McDonald.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mayor, members of the board. I just feel like we've lost so much south of 630, and I live in that area, John Barrow Edition, and I have for 4 years. There's a lot of things that we're talking about. We just want to get rid of it. If this was a purely financial decision, I think everyone could agree First tee would be the first to go. There is a place for first tee, but as Director Adcock was talking about, the kids, the high school teams and the different teams that play, they can't play first tee because it's not a par 72 course. You can't hold a tournament on a par 3 and then a regular 9-hole course. It doesn't make sense. We talked about the flooding, and we all, all the guys that play Hindman know that the flooding is a non-issue. Every course has, certain days where it's a cart path only, or it's a 90-degree rule with the carts. I just feel like, we're not going to go play first tee, and most of the members of my group, being the Pro Divers group, and then some other groups, we're not going to go play Rebsamen either. I'm not sure what to say. It seems like this is already, you have already completely made up your minds to do this. But I would feel like if we spent one-tenth of the dollars it's going to cost to repurpose Hindman, we could turn Hindman into something that is extremely special in the golf community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Terry Green.
I have, my name's Terry Green. I have this stuff written down so that I don't miss a point, hopefully. And my wife says, try to win them over. And I say, I'm not a politician. I want to make a point about closing War Memorial. I've lived in Little Rock since 1962. And this is the first time I've ever been down here, probably my last. My reason for being here is to say War Memorial Golf Course, however fruitless it may be. The first thing I want to say to you is, I don't believe you have thought this process through. I know you think you have, but I don't believe you have. You've already put people on notice that they will no longer have a job after a certain date. And I have yet to see a plan of what you are going to do with what courses. The words out of the mayor's mouth and everybody else is to repurpose the courses into something that's not a golf course. Well, let me tell you, War Memorial has been repurposed. They got a water park there. They got a pavilion there. They got a fishing lake there. They got people walk around the perimeter. It's been utilized. Now, not at all of those people pay to use that course. Only the golfers do. And there's not enough golfers right now to support it. But in time, it will be. Things have trends. It's down now, it'll be up later. Just give it time. Just give it some thought. That water park, for example, they closed down number 13 par 4 hole to put that park in there, water park. At the time we defested the idea. But that water park has been highly utilized by all kinds of people. So, I mean, it's turned out to be a good deal. But we got plenty of diversity there, and we just don't have enough players right now, but they'll come along. My my time up?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I had
We-
more I wanted to say.
We definitely do appreciate your comments, and they definitely are being
Okay.
listened to. Thank you so much, Mr. Green. Mr. Jody Carter. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Carter.
Well, Mayor, I've already spoken to the board and stressed my opinion about Hyman. I've worked with Vice Mayor Wyrick, and there's some tough decisions to be made. And if closing 2 golf courses is going to, my question is, if you close 2 golf courses, will that help fix the budget?
Yes.
Okay. So let's close 2 golf courses. Now, I have a problem with the expert analysis that was given to staff on the recommendations on the courses to be closed. And every recommendation that was made to close Hyman was out of his expertise area. First, he talked about real estate, selling the property. He talked about flood control. That's nowhere in his expertise area. And I'm just kind of numb right now because I have a tough feeling about the whole situation. I love Hyman. I live right behind Hyman. That's one of the reasons. But I don't know. If you close it, close it. I mean, we all need to be together on it. If it's going to do the budget by closing Hyman and based on the recommendation, War Memorial, and if you're going to recondition and redo some other things, let's just get started and do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carter. Really do appreciate you. Monica Brown.
Thank you all for your time. I'm Monica, and I am the program director out at the First Tee. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about what we do as a program. Yes, we are First Tee, the golf course, but more importantly, we're First Tee, the program. And what we do is we use golf as a tool to teach kids different life skills. And we do that in a variety of ways. We are in a number of the public schools, in the elementary schools. We're in Vail, which is right down the street from us. We're in David O'Dowd, which is right around the corner. We have our programming in Baseline. It's out in Don Roberts. It's over at Gibbs Magnet. And we reach a wide variety of kids. It's in our mission to serve the underserved. That's part of the reason why we are in the community we are, is so that we can reach these kids. And this past year, we reached over 15,000 kids in the Central Arkansas area. And that's something that we're very proud of. And a majority of those kids were minorities. 51% were minorities. 49% were female. And these are 2 groups that are typically underserved. There's barriers. There have been barriers with golf and minorities, and we have worked to bring down these barriers. And we're very proud of what we do because it's not a certain set of kid that needs to learn how to use good judgment. All kids need to learn how to use good judgment. It's not a certain kid that needs to learn how to live with integrity. Everybody can benefit from living with integrity. And I invite you all to come out and see what we do because we're a jewel to our city. We're an asset to the community that we're in, and we're very intentional about the things that we do. And the future of golf in the city is coming through the First Tee. The future leaders in our city are coming through the First Tee. Golf is important, but what we care about are making better citizens. And we're starting from the ground up, and we're reaching a lot of kids. And I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that while we are this great facility, where our impact is made is through our programming. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Brown Blake. Yeah, I knew it was Brown. I got confused. Well, that happens when you know people before they get married. That's my friend, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Lee Jeffrey. Jeffrey, is it Jeffrey? Yes, sir.
Thank you for this opportunity, Mayor and Board of Directors. You know, I came here in support of Hyman Golf Course because that's been our home course for over 25 years. And I love the course and I like playing the course. But like I said before I got here, I understand politics, I understand budgeting, I understand your city. You has to run your city and you got to have money to run it. but I hate to see you all close Hyndman Park Golf Course. And if some way my friend Mr. Moore can find some money there and try and help keep Hyndman open, he got a big pocketbook. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffrey, we do appreciate you and your sage wisdom as well. Mr. Moore owes me some money too, so I know. Mr. Director Rice said no lie. Mr. Ken Davis.
I believe I'm a day short and a dollar short too, but we'll just see what we can discuss here tonight. I am Ken Davis, and I'm very proud to be here in front of y'all. I'm a 15-year veteran of Hyndman, employed by Hyndman for 15 years. I'm one of many coaches and administrators and other fine professional retirees that help Charlie keep this place afloat, so to speak. I was just going to say something about what everybody else is. We just like it out there. We got diversity, and we bring in golfers from Benton, Bryant, Hot Springs, Sheridan, all over the city, North Little Rock. It's just real hard for me to understand the concept of wanting to get rid of something as valuable as it is to the city. Now, I hope I don't step on any toes here, but it doesn't look from that picture I saw up there where you're going to put any baseball fields or tennis courts or whatever. Now, you might have rock climbing because there's all mountains out there, but there's no flat places to put what you're talking about. The other thing is you're going to have to hire people to be in charge of that, aren't you? I mean, really? We got people out there that are in charge of golf. I imagine they're going to pay them about the same. It's going to take people like me to make sure things are easy for the boss. And then I don't know about the revenue, but are y'all going to charge people to come in? Well, we get $30 a head from everybody that comes in there. I mean, where are you going to make that up when you got another park, which you don't really need because you got so many now? The other thing that kind of bothers me is about this survey, and I hope that I don't step on any toes, but you hired somebody to do this, and he was a retired Stevens employee. Does that make sense? That sounds compromised to me right off the bat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Napoleon Phillips.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the Board of Directors. I'm a member out at, I play at Hyndman all the time. BJ Wired, Mr. Wired, she came out last Wednesday, and we had a group that play golf out there every Wednesday. We have a little tournament. And we all enjoy ourselves. It's a very diverse team. And if she was surprised to see all of us out there. But we enjoyed it. And we enjoy that playing at Hyndman. But we don't want to see Hyndman being closed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Brian Sally. It's gone. Sure. We'll go back to these. With that being said, are there any more questions from the board before I make any final comments? No other questions from the board? So now, after having going back to listen to the community for a month and a half, discuss the future of golf in Little Rock, the future of parks in Little Rock, and most importantly, the fiscal future that funds both, that funds the forward movement of our city. And as we started today, we started with the understanding of reinvestment, reimagining, and revitalizing parks in the city of Little Rock. Being someone that is a resident of Southwest Little Rock, a resident of South of 630, it's near and dear to me personally on the future of parks in that area. I think we can attest that parks and the multifacetedness of parks is a dire need, particularly in South of 630. And what you're seeing today is a commitment to revitalize, reinvest, and reimagine, not solely in War Memorial Park, but more importantly, in a South of 630 area, something that has not received this type of attention in quite some time. What you've heard today is staff recommending an all-out effort to be very targeted in how we address the future of parks all over the city, number one, but specifically to an area that has not received a lot of attention. And so when we think about parks, it's more than just golf. It's more than just soccer. It's more than just softball. It's more than just baseball. It's more than just basketball. It's more than just disc golf. It's more than just picnics. It's more than just barbecues. It's all inclusive. And South of 630 deserves an all-inclusive parks apparatus just as well as north of 630. This is an opportunity, again, to reinvest, reimagine, and recommit to our city. That being said, I will now accept the recommendation from staff as a member of this management to make that decision, that the policy of the city of Little Rock was to repurpose 2 of the 4 golf courses. That decision was made 2 weeks ago after a lengthy month-and-a-half discussion of the fiscal future of our city, and after due diligence from our city attorney, after due diligence from our parks staff, and looking at not only finances but the future of parks in our city, I'm now accepting that recommendation to revitalize, to reinvest and reimagine Hyman Park as well as War Memorial Park. Moving forward, based on that exception of those proposed recommendations, there will be a R3 Parks Task Force. R standing for revitalization, R standing for reimagining, R standing for reinvestment in parks for our entire city. This task force will be led by 2 members along with another task with individuals from the community on how we envision the future for parks. As my dear friend, Director Cappy Peck said, we all envision a day of being a city in the park. This is our opportunity to not have only one park, but multiple parks that meets all the needs of the diverse communities of the city of Little Rock, to be reflective of those communities as we move forward together. Thank you. We will now move forward. We have several modifications tonight on tonight's agenda. Item M1 is a resolution to lease. Director Adcock, you would like to keep N1 separate. M1 will be separate. Director Computers.
We take a 10-minute break.
Excuse me?
It's almost 8 o'clock.
You want to do a recess?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
We're going to now do a 10-minute. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. 10-minute recess. Meeting's now called back into session. We have already stated that M1 will be held separate prior to the recess.
Mayor, did I have a motion in a second to put it on the agenda?
No, it's been
Okay.
held separate.
But-
Yes, there was a motion in a second, yes. Is there, Madam Clerk, is there confusion?
I just didn't hear the motion, but,
Okay.
I mean, I know you had it separate, but, okay.
All those in favor of moving M1 to a separate location, moving separate on the agenda, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Director Adcock, can you restate that for us?
Remove item 10 from the agenda.
Yes. There's a motion and a second to remove item 10 from the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
Mayor, before we have the consent agenda, I had an item I'd like to bring up.
Yes, ma'am. What item would you like to bring up?
This gentleman had a card in, and we failed to call him, but he was inquiring about the $325 senior membership. With the senior membership, you could play Hyman, War Memorial, and the executive course at Revsman, and he was wanting to know what that did with the senior membership that all these elderly gentlemen have.
And what person? I'm looking at the cards.
It was a white card.
What's the person's name?
Ben.
Benson, Ken Benson, and I do apologize, I didn't see it right here.
And Mr. Moore has solved this problem for us, and I just need Mr. Moore to tell what the outcome is.
Yes.
Mayor, members of the board, what our plan is to honor all the senior memberships that are already in place that will also be able to play the full golf course at Repsman for the balance of this year.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moore. Thank you, Director Adcock. Director Compuers, did you have a question?
No.
Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution to express the willingness of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to utilize state aid street monies for the Ninth Street Asphalt Overlay Project and for other purposes. Funding from the 2012 3/8 capital improvement sales tax and the 2013 limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Summit Truck Group in the amount of $111,854.46 for the purchase of one international MV607 4x2 rollback truck for the Fleet Services Department and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Razor Cut Lawn in an amount not to exceed $108,490 to mow for mowing services at 30 city parks and 6 community centers and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a construction services contract with Township Builders in an amount not to exceed $83,180 for the construction of a new ADA accessible asphalt trail at Ottenheimer Park and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a construction services contract with Township Builders in an amount not to exceed $139,375 for the construction of a new trail for the MacArthur Park Safe Routes to School project and for the purposes. A resolution to ratify the reappointment of Eddie Powell to the Central Arkansas Board of Commissioners and for the purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
There's been a motion to move for the adoption and a second to move to the consent agenda. Prior to that, we have agenda item card, item number 3 for Mr. Russ Raycott. Item 3.
Thank you. I didn't want to get started and have to stop. All right. This is kind of interesting because I called the Parks Department about this razor cut, and you guys have it spelled wrong. You have it spelled razor space cut. And I tried to find that on the Secretary of State's website for businesses, and it didn't show up. So I Googled it and found out it's razor cut, one word. And then I was able to find out who owned it and all that sort of stuff. Called the Parks Department to find out if they had ascertained the staff of this yard service, because what I found, simply looking at Facebook, is that this individual cuts residential lawns. He has a picture of a white truck, dual cab truck, a trailer with a lawnmower, riding lawnmower on it, and some yard equipment, just like all the coaches in high school, when they go on summer break, they have a yard service. Got one that mows the neighbor's yard. And nobody was aware of that. They didn't do proper due diligence on that. And I'm kind of wondering how this one man with this residential yard service is going to cut 30 parks and 6 community centers. You know, Director Wright questioned how they would cut her community center every week. Well, it's not Director Wright's community center. It doesn't have Doris Wright on there. It's the West Central Community Center. It belongs to us. Now, she thinks she owns it, but it's not hers. And I appreciate her wanting to know that it's going to be cut. But I don't understand, you know, and Director Wright, I don't know how this man's going to cut all this stuff.
Mr. Rakob, if you could just please stick to the item and not address the board members.
Well, I believe it's my right to do that under the First Amendment. And there's no ordinances or any rules or any conduct.
We do have decorum here in city board meetings.
Yes, and I did an FOI on that, and there's no decorum rules. It's a arbitrary and capricious system that's based on what you decide. And the fact is, you don't control the First Amendment. You can kick me out of here, and that's fine, and I'll file a lawsuit, and I'll win it. And Judge Griffin was here a few minutes ago, and he'd tell you the same thing, and I'm sure your attorney over here that works for the Wright Jennings firm, I can forget the little guy's name, but he'd tell you the same thing, too.
Mr. Rakob, again, all we want you to do is just to be respectful. I know that may be hard, but ask that you be respectful.
Oh, I'm being respectful, because I could use some language that the Constitution allows me to use, but I won't, because I'll be respectful for the audience. But you guys know those words. But anyway,
thank you so much.
I just don't understand how you're going to have this out-of-town company mow these 30 parks and these 6 community centers. One man, I don't know how he's going to do that. And then what contingencies do we have when his one lawnmower breaks down? Is he going to borrow those from the Parks Department? And, you know, you guys talked about you didn't want to have somebody in Little Rock cut this, that we couldn't do that because other cities would not let Little Rock businesses work there, and that we had to think bigger than Little Rock. Well, that's the problem we have with the Chamber of Commerce and with some members of the board. We got problems in Little Rock. We need to take care of Little Rock before we try to help the whole greater Central Arkansas area. And if Conway wants to ban Little Rock vendors because we want to give a preference to Little Rock vendors, then let Conway do that. If Cabot wants to do that, let them do that. But this man's money that we're going to pay him, this $108,490, we're not going to see any money of that back. He's not going to pay it in property taxes. He's not going to pay it in sales tax, because I guarantee he's probably going to buy his gas at that little cheap station over on what is that, JFK in North Little Rock, that always has the cheap gas. And I don't understand how we can keep not thinking about our Little Rock citizens and supporting those businesses and doing a detriment by hiring these companies that I don't think is going to be able to fulfill this contract. Thank you for the time.
Mr. Rakob, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much for that. Director Hendricks?
It has to do with resolution number 3.
Yes, ma'am.
I have had several employees, former employees of this city that's concerned about the $108,490 to this man. Does anybody know this man? Does anybody know the company?
Mr. Moore, can you address that, please?
Sure.
And it's North Little Rock. Is that where is he stationed?
I think it's Jacksonville.
Yeah,
and we
worse.
talked about this last time. You know, the board has been very public about making sure we're spending our tax dollars prudently. So state law outlines how you do it, and you have to put out a bid. And I sent you all, first of all of the companies. I think there were over 200 Little Rock companies that got notice of this bid. So we don't give notice to Jacksonville companies or Cabot or anything. So they got notice. We got 11 bids, and our purchasing managers here to describe that process. And once they meet, it's really a two-step process. And once they meet the technical requirements and say they have the ability, I mean, this was his bid, and he said he has the ability. I think he's going to add staff and so forth. But Tom has said you can reject any and all bids, but which is prudent or is a possibility. But when we follow the process, and when we talked about, even when we had the preferential bidding for Little Rock companies, I believe, again, it was about 7 or 8 years ago, and the entire time it was in place, there were only really 2 Little Rock companies that were successful in that preferential bidding process. So, and then secondly, if you look at the wide range on the bids, having a preference for Little Rock companies wouldn't have made a difference in this particular case. So we follow the process, and obviously, if this company, we'll enter into a contract with them, and that's what this authorizes. And if they don't meet the standards of the contract, then there are options for us.
Mr. Moore, but you did say that he has to hire people.
I said.
He had to bring on people. This man doesn't even have a staff.
And again, the only thing we can do is put out a bid. We said this is what we were going to do. John feels very confident that, again, we'll be monitoring this. And again, we have certain standards that he has to meet, or this company has to meet.
So did he meet the standards?
Well, we hadn't entered into the contract yet, but he did for the bid.
The other thing that I'm concerned about is that so many of the former staff people, they were fired, and then you come on with this? I mean, what are we doing about that? Are you all aware of all the minorities that were kicked off by the director of this department? I'm not afraid to talk about the truth. This man, Mr. Moore, you know what I'm talking about? The East End, I was even brought to the attention of East Little Rock. All of those black men out there were accused of stealing and all this kind of stuff, and they were terminated. Did you all not know that, the board? And I met with these individuals even before Eckhart did, even before Bruce knew that it was going on, and I'm sick of this mess. It's just not fair. And I'm requesting that this bid needs to be pulled because all of you all are looking like you don't know what I'm talking about. I don't want to use church lingo, but something's wrong. And if I have to identify a person who's sitting in this audience who is concerned about this issue, otherwise, I had said I wasn't going to say anything about it. But I don't think that we need to sit here like dumbbells and not know what's going on. Bruce, did you ever tell the staff about all these people that were fired in this department that have been with this city for years?
That is totally, there's no correlation with this bid. And,
yes, it is.
Well, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. This was part of the budget amendment that passed. We were very clear that in this budget amendment, if you remember, we increased the park's operating budget by about $300,000.
After you got rid of all the black men?
I'm going to resent that. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, well.
But you know I don't.
Well, but again, we were very clearly in this budget amendment, even though we made reductions, we also said in order to continue to maintain our parks, we were going to increase the park's operating budget, expenditure budget by about $300,000. And so that was part of the budget amendment. And again, we enter into these contracts every week, and there's very strict requirements. And if they don't meet the requirements, then there are options. But unless again, as from a purchasing standpoint, we just decide that we're going to reject any and all bids. We really don't have an option. I mean, first of all, we got to start making sure the grass is mowed.
Well, Bobby Bell, who's been with, he was not on the list. I found that out. Bobby Bell, who is a gardener and has done some work with the city, even with the trees. You know, I had gave somebody hell about that a black didn't get that work. And I think it's unfair. Mr. Moore, do I have to ask the mayor, can we pull this? What do you do? Is it too late?
Director Hendricks, we have, because of how the process has already gone from a management perspective, it's now a policy of the board to decide whether or not to approve this contract. If the board decides to vote against this contract, it would have to restart again. Now,
what are you saying, Tom?
Mr. Attorney, Tom. So for it to start up, for the process to start all over again, Director Hendricks, what has to happen is a majority of the board has to vote against this particular ordinance.
So
and
how
then,
do I do that?
when we go to vote, well, if there's a roll call, it has to be a majority of the vote to vote against it. Then it'll then start the process to restart all over again.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So when do I do that? Not now, but when we get ready to vote, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, Tom, if you would, just to make certain, I want to make sure we're being very in order. Are you confirming that that's correct?
That's correct. You're getting ready to vote on the consent agenda. Vote. Those who wish to vote against any item need to note that.
Say it again, Tom.
You're about to vote on the consent agenda. If you wish to vote against a particular item, you need to note that at the time of the vote.
Right. So now, Tom, I want to make certain that we're very clear. How would one note a specific item? Because when I make a motion, it's for the entire consent agenda.
Right.
So how could we understand that Director Hendricks is against item 3? What does she need to do to make certain that's notated?
She needs to note that she is for the items except number 3.
And so how would the board vote? Because when I ask for a vote, it's for the entire consent agenda. I need to know that process.
It would be the same for each board member.
So does she need to make that statement before I call for the vote?
No, because
After?
it's a part of the vote. Her vote is for the consent agenda except number 3.
How is that stated is my question.
Just like that.
All right.
I except for number 3.
All right. I just want to make sure we're clear. Right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
We're just waiting.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor to approve the consent agenda for items 1 through 6. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
And Tom, what am I supposed to say? Aye, but I do not approve 3.
Yes, ma'am.
I know this is new for the board, but it's things that we just need to take care of. And all the board members heard my expression.
Yes, ma'am.
I wouldn't sit up here and lie.
Right.
And I think Bruce knows what has happened with that department.
Yes, ma'am. And
But anyway, they'll just go
And
down
Director Hendricks, we'll visit with the Parks Department and get back with you. I heard all ayes have it. Ayes have it. Motion passed, with the exception of Directors Hendricks and Directors Adcock on item number 3. So that should be recorded. Motion passed for every motion except for item number 3 and the 2 that voted against item number 3 in the consent agenda of 1 through 6 was Directors Adcock and Hendricks.
Did we do a roll call?
Well, technically that was the roll call. It was 8 to 2.
But I mean with the secretary.
7 to 2. Yes, 7 to 2 because Ken is gone.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Madam Clerk, would you please read the grouped items for the first time?
An ordinance to amend the land use plan in the area between Interstate 430 and the Arkansas State Capitol Complex, north of Interstate 630 in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas as structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct the city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency, and for other purposes. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code number 32-322 of 1988 on the immobilization of automobiles with delinquent parking fines, to declare an emergency, and for the purposes. First reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules for first and second reading. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Second.
Who was second?
Director Wright. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to amend the land use plan in the area between Interstate 430 and the Arkansas State Capitol Complex, north of Interstate 630. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas as structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code Section 32-322 of 1988 on the immobilization of automobiles with delinquent parking fines, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules for third and final reading. Second by Director Wright. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Third reading.
An ordinance to amend the land use plan in the area between Interstate 430 and the Arkansas State Capitol Complex, north of Interstate 630. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas as structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct the city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code Section 32-322 of 1988 on the immobilization of automobiles with delinquent parking fines, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
Do I have a motion? Now we've heard three readings. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. After the three readings, all those in favor of the emergency clause? All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes.
There's two emergency
For item,
clauses.
that was for item 8. Now, emergency. All those in favor for emergency clause, item number 9. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. We will now move to M1 that was being held separate, and then just for the audience, after we move from M1, we'll then go back and conclude to citizens communication, and then after that, we will hopefully adjourn.
Mayor, what about, I'm here, I've been here since 3:30.
Yes, sir.
We have, can I get up?
Are you Mr. Clinton Spann? Yes, sir. You're going to be, and I do apologize, Mr. Spann. That's my fault. I misplaced your card for item number 8, but please come up to discuss item number 8. But I do want to share with you it has been voted on item number 8, but I do apologize for missing it. That's my fault.
My name is Clinton Spann. I come from old school. My wife and I, she's a missionary in Kenya, Africa for 20 years. She's a retired licensed clinical social worker. I'm a retired welder from Reynolds Metals Company, and I'm a veteran. Just to let you know a little bit about us, and I was raised to do the right thing.
Thank you for your service, too.
Okay, you're welcome, sir. And I thank you, Mayor, and the board. I'm not good at talking to a board, but we have a piece of property at 7911 Woodhaven. And years ago, my wife and her son decided he wanted to buy houses and fix them up and sell them or rent them. And we bought 7 houses, and that was more or less between her and him. She's my power of attorney, and they did the dealings. I was out of that. But at any rate, along the way, he really turned into a rascal. He's not been a good son. He's been mean to his mother, and he just bailed out and left us holding everything. We made all the mortgage payments, and we now have sold 6 of them houses. We lost one because he didn't pay the taxes on it.
and we put $20,000 in trying to fix it up in Jacksonville. We have one left at Woodhaven. We didn't even know we had it until about a year ago, and it was under condemnation. Then we owe $16,800 on it, and the city was going to, they was considering taking it down, and so I went to Mr. Garland, and he gave me time to bring it back and to prove that we could put $25,000 into it if we had to. We've put almost $14,000 into it now. It's got a brand new roof on it. All the plumbing, I've spent over $4,000 for the plumbing from the road into the house, and it's all been plumbed, and the plumber's going to be there again tomorrow to finish up his part so it can be inspected. I've had the electricity brought up to code, and the electrician's still got some work to do on it. And I'm not trying to play on your sympathies, but the truth is, my wife has stage 4 bone cancer, and she has pulmonary hypertension, and she was on a pump, and very scary time. I gave her shots, and she spent 28 days in UAMS intensive care and went back in for 21. Then she was in for 50 days intensive care. She stopped breathing for 4 minutes, and her heart stopped for 4 minutes. They didn't expect her to live. She's been on a ventilator for 3 times. And we have a prospective buyer for Woodhaven, and so I just quit putting money back into it, and they tell me that as soon as the taxes are done, then they'll buy it. We've sold these people 2 houses so far, and they've been upright with us, and everything was on the up and up. I fully intend to do what I say I'll do, and if they don't buy it, I'm going to go ahead and finish it out, and we're trying to sell it at least to break even on it. We'll never break even. But I need more time. And the yard was, we got a notice in the mail. Well, her son sent it on to us, but we had 7 days to mow the yard because it was getting high, and we didn't know that. And I called Mr. Jackson and Code Man, and they had sent that 7-day notice to the wrong address. They'd sent it to her son, and we didn't get it. And then he gave me 7 more days, and the yard is all cleaned up, the front and the back, and it's all raked, and it looks good. And he was over yesterday, and yesterday he gave me another 45 days. But then he called me today and said the board was going to meet at 4 o'clock, and that he couldn't give me the time, and I needed to come to the board meeting to talk to y'all. And I just really appreciate y'all hearing my needs, and I do the best I can, and we have the money, and I've showed Mr. I had it written down, Mr. Garland. We proved to him with bank statements we can put the money in it. So that's why I'm here, and I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spann, and again, we do appreciate your service. Director Compuris.
I'd like to reconsider our vote and take 7911 Woodhaven off the demolition.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. So item 7911, Woodhaven Road, Ward 7 has been, that vote has been expunged. Director Wyrick, Vice Mayor Wyrick.
I would like, I couldn't mash my button, so
Yeah.
Lance had to do it for me. I would like to hear from Mr. Garland or Mr. Turner to understand the information that he's given us. I have been pushing the staff to take care of a number of properties in this area, And we have 8, 9, 10 houses that are UV'd over there, and they just look terrible. The neighbors, have to drive through and look at stuff. So I'd like to have one of them describe to us the process that we've gone through and how we got to this point.
Mr. Garland, please approach the podium. Thank you, Mr. Spann.
Mayor, it's a point of order. You haven't voted to take it off. You voted to reconsider taking it off.
Correct, and now we're going to have Mr.
Right,
Garland.
but
Yes, sir.
it hasn't been enacted.
Thank you for that clarification. Again, Board, just to restate what the parliamentarian shared, when Director Compurus motioned to take item that's for 7911 Woodhaven Road, Ward 7, he voted to have it reconsidered. You guys voted yes, with one abstention being Vice Mayor Wyrick. We're now going to have Mr. Garland provide information. Then there will be a revote. Mr. Garland.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board, Director Wyrick. We've been involved with 7911 Woodhaven Drive since January 23rd, 2014. On April 2018, we did have a conversation with the existing owner who explained his existing situation. We followed that up with our normal process of checking progress. We then notified the owner in May that the time had to bring the property up to code had not been fulfilled, and that we would be presenting it to the board again for approval for condemnation. That's how we get to this point. I am not aware of the demolition supervisor awarding 45-day extensions. That's generally
what I was curious about. Yeah.
That generally will be referred to our office and requires director approval.
Okay. So you all fully expected this to be on the demolition list and be demolished per our normal process
Last year.
2018. Oh yeah, we're 2019,
Yes, ma'am.
aren't we?
Yes, ma'am.
2018. So how did we get to 2019? From April 2018 to 2019?
Because of the initial meeting, the commitment to bring it up to full code,
Okay.
which didn't happen.
So he's talking about he's done a lot of things at the property, and these pictures look like they're from May 29th, 2019. Have you all seen progress at this location?
Not as of those photos. What we generally will try to do is bring the most current photos we can get, interior, exterior, before the board. Now, what I can do tomorrow is go and pull the permit history to see when there were electrical inspections done, plumbing inspections done, et cetera, et cetera. This property is also, as of June 3rd, certified to the state for no paid taxes.
June 3rd, 2019.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it sounds like he's been working, says he's been working on this for over a year to rehab it and bring it back. But these May 29th pictures, I can't see the roof. I don't know about the electrical. I don't know about the other pieces he spoke about, and you may not know either. Is that true?
As the pictures we took there as of May 29th, those would be the most current pictures we have. Oftentimes, when we are beginning to prepare a file to present to the board, we'll have a difficult time when we request inspections to get updates on the interior. So we'll either have to, if there's an opening, try to get photos through a window, and if not, then we'll take the best exterior photos we can.
Well, this is an area that I've been working on trying to improve the housing stock in it, and Woodhaven is one of the streets that I've seen some really bad housing. So, thank you. Mr. Spann, how much time are you asking for to repair this back to normal?
Well, we have a prospective buyer, and he told me that he's doing his taxes and that they would take it after the taxes. We've sold them 2 houses. But if I could have 3 more months, if they don't buy it, I'm going to bring it back and put it on the market. But the electrical's been done, and the water's been done, and the gas. I haven't had the gas meter set in yet, but they've run everything new from the road in. And
Did you have permits from the city to do all this?
pardon me?
Did you have city permits to do this work and it's been inspected?
Yeah, I've got permits. I've got a permit.
city of
and
Little Rock.
I've got the electrical permit, and I've got the plumber's permit.
So that
The electrical
means,
permit's good until August the 3rd, 2019.
so have they came back and certified that everything's good?
No, they haven't.
Okay, you just had a
Not
permit.
that I know of. I don't really understand. Mr. Jackson said that it would be up to the plumber and the electrician to have the inspections done, and they haven't done that. The plumber's, the electrician, no, the plumber's supposed to be there tomorrow between 11 and 11:30. I talked to him today, and he's going to get back on it and finish it up. He's got very little to do with it, to hook up the hot water heater, but it's, and it doesn't look like that right now. The yard is mowed and it's raked, and it's not as bad as that looks.
Yeah. I meet with the neighborhood association once a month in this area.
I'm sorry, one of my hearing aids went out a while ago.
Well, I may
was
not be
checking my
talking
battery.
very loud, I'm sorry. I meet with the neighborhood once a month in this area, and we talk about the rundown houses and what we're going to do. So this happens to be in one of those neighborhoods that we're trying to improve the housing stock. So
I
that's the
understand.
reason why I voted no.
I understand.
Thank you.
What? Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm probably mumbling. I apologize. I meet with the neighborhood association for this area once a month.
Okay.
And we talk about the decline in housing stock and how many homes we have that are in disrepair and what can we do to fix them. And so that's the reason why I voted no.
And you talk about what you can do to fix them.
Well, try to get people either to demolish them or someone to come in and fix them. That's what we talk about.
Well, we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
I've already put almost $14,000 in it.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Director Compuris.
I'm going to make a motion that we give you 90 days.
That's all I need.
Now, let you understand one thing. At the end of 90 days, if you put money into this and you hadn't brought it up to code so that you either sold it or that our staff says it's okay, I'll vote to tear it down and you'll lose every penny.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So I'll make a motion, we give you 90 days.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. We got everything in order. Point of order. Number one, we have a motion to reconsider the vote for 7911 Woodhaven Road. That's first in order. But before we get to that vote, Director Hines has a question as well as Director Adcock. Director Hines.
Mayor, mine goes on the point of order. We already had a vote in the motion to reconsider. Tom, does it not require unanimous vote? And Vice Mayor Wyrick voted no on the
I
motion
don't think
to
so if it's
reconsider.
made at the same meeting.
Well, we had a case where. Okay, well, I'm
We got the wrong.
because
one.
at a previous meeting we had a director wanted to change their vote, and that may be a.
Changing the vote takes unanimous.
Okay, all right. So motion to reconsider is a different animal then. Okay, just wanted to clarify. And then I have a question about the question of this property being certified to the state that staff just brought to us, because that's a whole different animal.
So, Mr. Garland, could you address that question from Director Hines?
Yeah. And then maybe a question for Tom after he gets his Robert's Rules book out. But if it's certified to the state, Ed, for taxes, then I don't even know if we can bring it down. That'd be a question. I mean, you may know, but Tom may know too. That's my question. If it's already been certified to the state for delinquent taxes, I take it.
Director Hines, part of our notification process always includes the state land commission.
Okay.
As in the past, we've always done it that way.
Okay, so
Based-
we've certified it to the state.
No. We notified the State of Arkansas Land Commission
Okay.
that the city of Little Rock was considering submitting the property for condemnation, which affords them an opportunity to respond if they have an interest.
Okay, and they've responded, they have an interest? So, okay, I misunderstood you. I thought you
Ev-
said it was so you're saying
It
the
is
state's certified that they don't have an interest, correct?
Let me make
Okay.
sure I explain it clearly.
All right. All right.
Mr. Garland, I'm going to do a point of privilege just for a long-term city employee of many, many years who has been waiting patiently to share something with the city board. Mr. Carl Hines, if you would, please come up. And we'll come back to so you can address Director Hines' question.
Thank you, Mayor. The board, Mr. Moore, Mr. Redcock. I'm Carl Hines, and you know me and everybody else. But I came because the city of Little Rock, somehow, my name got in contact with the... Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And I am a future generation, what we talking about. But what I came, you see this? Labor approved by World Changers. I was chosen through the city of Little Rock, the neighborhood housing program, to paint my house. Okay, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't come down and sign the paper, something like that. They came out. Well, in the beginning, Mayor, Ed Clark, Brother Moore came out to the house. I met all of them, and yeah, got on news. We had a good meeting. Okay, those kids, Lifeway students, they're from all over. I met them, and we shook hands and stuff like that. I came to tell the city and everybody else is listening how much I appreciate that you all have done for me and for my house and my neighbors and things. I mean, I could have done it, you know. I'm not saying old man, but I've been here a long time. But I really appreciate what the city and the World Changers have done for me and my community, because people are coming by want to, how kind of help can they get? I said, contact the city and see what you can do. You have to fill out a form. But I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you. And it wasn't for me. I showed a picture of my wife. I got just to bring her out. She's 87 and she's ready to get out. To show you it wasn't only for me, it was for my family. And I appreciate what you all have done, and you're doing a good work. And keep on working with these organizations, because it means a lot to senior people. Now, right quick, let me get on this. I work for the city. Okay. I don't know about the golf course, but I wish I could work on some of your committees on helping you do the budget, because there are other cuts you can get to save it. You can't do it all in 1 year, but everybody's on the mayor, which I know he inherited that stuff. But a lot of cuts you can make without doing it all on closing the golf courses. There are a lot of cuts you can make, and I know that because I've been around a long time. And some of you have never been on the golf course to see what it's like. Some of you have. See what people can do. At my age, I decided that, well, I didn't know what I was going to do. I could still ride bikes and things. But my thing was, I decided to play a little golf. I couldn't do it, but it's exercise. Everybody loves a little exercise. So I just want to say, just let me get on the board and help you kind of do the budget. Let me work with some of the people, you know, and that's my friend over there, Ms. White, my daughter. And let's get the thing going, Brother Moore. And let's see, can we do this budget without putting a lot of people, you know, out of job, got unemployment and stuff like that. And like I said, you know, I'm going to say it now, that's why you open gun carry. That's why you see all this shooting, because somebody is crazy enough that's going to lose a job, going to try to do something. Now, I'm not, I hope they don't. But that's what's happening. When you read the paper every day, somebody has gone crazy and tried to harm somebody for something, that somebody made a mistake. So let's do the future, and not, because the future and young people is computers. I got a bunch of kids in my hood. It's a park up there. Where are they? On computers. So they going to get old one day, so keep something good for the older people. We all can get old. So I think I was planning the future for some up there now. So I appreciate y'all doing what you're doing. I'm going to run. Keep on doing what you're doing. And everybody in Little Rock know me. I got a great gunson out there. Tell you to watch me. He's on the police force. So he's
Thank you, Mr. Hines.
My classmate.
Have a good one.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you, Mr. Hines.
Mayor.
Mr. Garland, hopefully you can answer this question briefly. If you need to defer to the city attorney, that's fine as well.
I just clarify, because I may have misunderstood what you said, so.
One of our checks is that we will go on the Pulaski County website to determine if a property has been certified to the State Land Commission prior to presenting to the board. If so, we then notify the State Land Commission of the city's intention to demolish a structure. As you have heard tonight, several statements about the desire to sell this property, that starts our clock all over. In that, we are then required to gather all of the warning notices, inspections we've done, and share with the new owner, who then gets an additional time frame to do this renovation.
Okay. So what you're telling me is somebody has certified this property to the state?
For the amount of $827.91. Delinquent taxes for 16 through 17 is $579.40, and the current tax due is $248.51. The city of Little Rock is currently owed $3,053.38 for our boarding, securing, cutting, and cleaning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. Director Adcock?
Yes. Mr. Garland, one thing that's kind of confusing is that this gentleman said that he had recently received a notice about the tall grass and that it's all been cut and everything. He said that he also received a 45-day extension on the actions that we're doing tonight from somebody in your office. Also, he has permits to do plumbing and electrical on this house and put a roof on this house. So how is he getting all of these permits and talking to the code officers about the grass and everything whenever it's come up to this level with us?
Director Adcock, let me see if I can answer it this way.
Okay.
Obtaining a permit doesn't necessarily mean that there's work going to be done on a specific property. As an example, we're preparing to bring back to the board in another 60 days a property in southwest Little Rock that a citizen was granted an extension by the board and did nothing. Number two, David Jackson, who's the gentleman that was referred to, he's in charge of the Special Projects Group and supervising demolitions. He does not have the authority to grant a 45-day extension to any property owner.
Okay, does he have the code officer authority to give a notice on the tall grass?
Mr. Jackson would not be the one issued the notice. The process works, a code officer will issue the homeowner a notice, allow 7 days, maybe up to 10 if I've got to mail it. At that time, we'll do a reinspection. If the property is still in violation, we will then submit it to Mr. Jackson to send one of his crews to cut and clean.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. So now, back to get. Can you redo it again? Please press your thing. I thought you were done with questions. But I need you to press the thing so they can hear your question.
Did you realize that this has been sent to the state for the state to take this property?
Ma'am, we haven't had anything come to us in the mail at all.
Okay, Mr. Garland has just said that the state has $800 worth of back taxes, plus the city has liens up there for $3,053. So you would need $3,853 to get this back from the state.
No, the state only is going to go after the taxes. They're not necessarily going to go for our liens.
I thought Mr. Garland said that our
They try to
lien.
get the liens, but
Are you saying it's been taken for taxes
Yes, sir.
in 2 years?
I don't know how many years this is, but he said that has been sent to the state for
Pardon me?
taxes.
2 years. I didn't know they could take it for his taxes in 2 years. I didn't know it was back taxes.
$800, $800 and something dollars was what Mr. Garland has said.
Well, I'll pay the taxes. I didn't know there was back taxes. That's something we got into with her son. He's supposed to be taking care of things, and it goes to him, and we never see it. And
Okay, thank you. That's
y'all
all.
do what you have to do, and we'll eat it if we have to. But we're willing to do what we need to do to satisfy the city. But
We'll
this is like a 300-pound anvil around me and my wife's neck. And whatever.
Well, Mr. Span, so what's happened so far is due to your commentary, Director Compuris felt compelled to have the board to reconsider.
Have what?
Have the board to reconsider the vote. So now what we have before us is to reconsider the vote. I think depending on what this vote transpires, he's also made some comments if it was to pass. So now, do we have a motion to reconsider the vote for item for as it relates to demolition of 7911 Woodhaven Road, Ward 7? The motion is to
the actual vote will be for the ordinance without 7911 in part of it.
yes.
What
I'll pay the taxes tomorrow.
1 second, Mr. Span. Just 1 second, Mr. Span.
the question I've got from the board is this. There's nothing wrong with taking that vote, having this on the next agenda, finding out that the taxes are paid, the permits are there. We've got all the things that we've heard conflicting stuff about tonight, and the 90-day requirement going into another action at that time. There's nothing wrong with voting to keep the vote as it is now. Those are your options.
Right, but before us, we have a vote to approve.
Right now, it's on the ordinance to condemn the 3 properties, and the request was made to do it so that 7911 Woodhaven would be taken out. A vote of no means that the ordinance is not reconsidered. A vote of yes is that the ordinance is reconsidered and passed without 79 Woodhaven.
So with the explanation, we understand what a no vote is, we understand what a yes vote. So now, there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. We approve the 3 properties minus the 7911 Woodhaven Road. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Roll call.
Director Hendricks. Director Richardson. Director Webb.
Yes.
Director Peck.
Yes.
Director Hines. Director Wright.
Yes.
Director Compuris.
Yes.
Director Fortson.
Yes.
Director Adcock.
No.
Vice Mayor Wyrick.
No, the motion fails, and so the ordinance with all 3 to be condemned goes forward.
Thank you. Now we'll move towards the final item for tonight.
What was that?
Mr. Spann, the board has voted that to condemn 7911. Is that correct, Mr.?
Yes, they voted to do that earlier by a vote of 5-4. They did not overturn that vote.
Correct.
The mayor can only vote to pass a measure. Yeah, he could vote to pass the measure. He could choose not to vote. He cannot vote against it.
I understand what I can do. Thank you. Moving to M1.
All the money I put into it means nothing.
There's been a board vote as it relates to the process.
And it's
Yes, sir.
it's condemned, and you're going to tear it down.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Now we'll move to M1. And M1 was just held separate. Could you please read the item for M1? Mr. Spann, we've already addressed, but what we'll do is I'll come outside.
It's about tearing it down.
I'll yeah. M1.
A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a lease agreement with Ben Nelson Golf and Utility Vehicles at an annual amount of $146,282.40 for the leasing of golf carts, utility vehicles, ball picker cart, and a concession refreshment cart for the City of Little Rock golf courses and for other purposes.
There's a motion and a second to move for the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye.
Ask for this to be held separate because I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Moore, you just said you was going to close 2 golf courses, and we're sitting here looking at spending $146,000 on golf carts. Why are we not taking the ones from those 2 golf courses and moving them over to the 2 golf courses that we're going to keep?
Mr. Webb can come forward.
Mark, it looks to me like we'd be having a sale on extra golf carts instead of buying new golf carts.
All right, Director Adcock, my understanding is that we have a lease that's coming to an end on June 15th. The person that's leasing these golf carts to us that we have today are needing to be replaced. And so he's not wanting to extend the contract with us. He's pretty much finished working with us on this. So we need these carts replaced, and this allows us to get those carts replaced.
Is this a lease or is this a purchase?
It's a lease
For how long?
for 1 year to extend to 3.
Golf carts cost that much to lease?
This is a very nice golf cart. I understand the battery in it is a battery that doesn't need any maintenance. It's one of those, what's the word they use here, lithium ion. It's a little bit above my pay grade, but it's a very nice cart. It has a GPS unit on it. It'll allow people to...
I'm sorry, people go out there for exercise and everything, and I don't see where they need GPS and everything else. So I'm surely not going to support this after closing 2 golf courses tonight. Thank you. Ridiculous.
Director Hines.
Thank you. I think if I remember right, we've got GPS on the golf carts already at Rebsamen Golf Course. And the way I understood it is the lease is up. If we don't go with this new lease, we won't have any golf carts. I do know that golf course operations at the golf carts do generate revenue and they're net positive, so this lease rolls into the rentals. And as far as I understand, and the golf folks in parks can tell us that that's a net positive. That's the way a course generates money. It doesn't lose money on the golf course, correct? Thank you. I'll be supporting this. Call for the question, Mayor.
There's a motion, a second call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We'll now have a motion. Is there a motion to second? Is there a motion to approve M1? It has been already been made. There's a motion second to approve M1. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We'll now go to citizens communication. Right. Larnell Lewis.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the board. I'm coming to you with a concern for two topics. One is the dangers of fifth generation technology, and the second one being the new not warrant law that was passed here recently by the Chief of Police in Little Rock Police Department. The first concern, I sent out an email to Mr. Mayor Scott Jr. I don't know if you got a chance to check it out, but I sent you an email regarding this concern, and I got a chance to speak with Mrs. Doris Wright, who's ahead of Ward 6, where I currently live. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because technology is a very important part of our livelihood. We use it every day for all sorts of things, but the things that we aren't aware of are its health hazards that it has upon us. One of the things that I'm concerned about is in the 6th Ward where I currently live is Parkview High School, and Parkview Magnet High School to be exact. And one of the things there that deals with technology is a Gwen Tower. Now, the Gwen Tower, Gwen being an acronym that stands for Ground Wave Emergency Network, and its original creation was by the armed forces of our government, the U.S. Air Force in particular, to help communications and the event of a nuclear attack or nuclear holocaust. It was halted by Congress in 1990, and here it is now, almost 30 years later, that this same technology is in the heart of our community at one of our schools. Also, through the studies of scientists and doctors throughout the world, this type of technology is a health hazard on mass proportion. As a matter of fact, there are numerous colleges in California who disagree with the use of this technology. And I think that it's something that should be brought to our attention as a neighbor, because as a father and a concerned neighbor in that community, I worry about the children because, number one, if we do not bring this type of information to a head and allow others to be warned, we could lose our very future, our children who are the future of this potential city, state, and nation. One of the questions or concerns that came up earlier was golf about First Tee that was presented by Mrs. Brown, and she said that this was a great outlet for children of color and also of the female gender. But my concern is if we continue to let this type of technology exist in our community, there won't be a future. There was a study conducted in Germany of 1,000 residents with this type of technology, and of that, a third was diagnosed with cancer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Mr. Jason Tipton.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the board. Came here tonight to talk about the e-scooter ordinance that I believe was supposed to be on the agenda tonight. I guess it got knocked back, which is a good thing. Want to introduce myself. I'm part of the BFCC Bike Friendly Group committee, but I'm representing myself here tonight, not the committee. But I would just like to encourage you to reach out to the bike ped coordinator, who's introduced a little earlier tonight, John Lindusky, but just on any bike, ped, e-scooter issues, if you could just reach out to him, because that I know of, I don't think he was really involved in the process of creating the e-scooter ordinance, and I'm just concerned that our bike ped coordinator is being underutilized here in the city. Like I said, he wasn't part of the crafting of the ordinance. I would hope that future efforts that affect bikes, pedestrians, scooters, those types of issues, that they can involve him from the start, and that you will reach out, and that city employees reach out to him when these issues come up. As for the ordinance itself, I haven't had a chance to talk to John about it, to get his take on it. And he's very well informed on the e-scooter trends, national trends, what's going on in different other cities across the nation. He's worked for years on RFPs for the bike share, not the scooter share, but the bike share system. So he knows a lot on this area. And as for the actual ordinance itself, like I said, I haven't talked to John, but it looks pretty good. One concern that I did have was about multi-use trails. I'm not sure exactly. It calls out sidewalks. It says that you can't ride the e-scooter on a sidewalk, which I agree with. That's kind of a national best practice not to do that. But I didn't know if multi-use trails would fall under that category or not. And so I'm just concerned that our e-scooters still going to be at the river trail. Are they going to be at the Clinton Bridge, Two Rivers, the two trails that we voted on tonight, that you voted on tonight to fund, Ottenheimer Park and another trail? So I'd just be concerned on those multi-use trails. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tipton. Mr. Josh C. ML. Joseph ML.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate Kathy Webb for inviting me here. We had a wonderful program on on what was that, the 10th, May 10th, at the Hillary Clinton Library, and we had probably thinking about we're going to have 20 or 40 people, and we had probably about 250 sitting at the Hillary Clinton Library. First time I've been there. I'm a filmmaker, and I was able to get a beautiful shot. Not that I had my camera, but I had my camera eye of the children playing in the background as we talked about the need for working with homelessness. And we've been designated out of 6 cities in America as a vanguard city. What that, I think we're developing the meaning of that is as we progress in working with homelessness, that information is out there to these particular 6 cities in the country. And so what we're doing is creating a document of this process with Representative Love having a summit, which we have not set the date yet, but we'll bring it to the end of that with this document showing us progressive in Little Rock working with our homeless program here, which we lack really at all, but we had many directors there to be involved in taking account for this. We've got to consider that our baby boomers are going to be one of the largest areas of homeless that increase, and as we are today, we're not even prepared to be taking care of that largest generation that's ever been on this earth. So this is a very important issue, and here to tell you that we're making a progression by coming together, and what a beautiful program to have Kathy Webb there. I saw Ken Richardson, some other politicians, and then, of course, shame on you that didn't show up. That shows your lack of support of something that's really needed to be done. On the other side of this, also, I'd like to bring up that we're getting ready to design a multi-sports competition on the ULR campus on November 2nd, and we are looking at the golf course as part of this. And as you see it close down, you start looking in the aspect that for us to bring headquarter companies to the city, we have to have a uniqueness to us. As we erase War Memorial and we bring it together with St. Vincent's and UAMS, especially when you hear the word Stevenson there, we're taking out our soul in the city. 630 took out black communities and Catholic communities. It divided the city. It's been devastating to us. As we devastate more and erase, we will pay the price, but our children will hurt the worst. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Mr. Russ Raycott.
Mayor, I made a Freedom of Information request about expenditures from your office and got that. And, we've had talks about the budget and money that was spent, and one of the documents that stuck out in my mind was that it had that in the 5 months that you've been in office, there's been $77,000 expended by yourself. A large amount of that was $12,000 was spent going to a mayor's conference. And we're talking about cutting staff and things like that. And
$12,000 was not spent on going to a mayor's conference.
well, there was a document, and it'll be on my blog later this week, and people can see
Sure
that.
is, but we want to make sure you state the correct truth.
Well, but there was an expense for $12,000 to a mayor's
Part
conference.
of the membership for a U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Okay,
Let's
well,
keep
it's
going.
a membership. $12,000 is spent.
It is.
All right. And then I saw a credit
Also,
card.
just so you know, the $77,000 does include my salary.
Right.
Okay.
And a $700.
Let's just make sure we're telling the truth.
Right, but you're taking up my time.
I am.
Okay. Yeah. And it's also $700 for a vehicle expense, and you're being driven around in a rented car by
That is
police
true.
escorts, four of them.
Part of the package of
Right,
being mayor
right.
under the ordinance.
Right. And then there was also copies of a ghost account from Iberia Bank, which is your credit card. Saw numerous expenses, and I'd like to speak first before you interrupt me. Numerous expenses to Copper Grill for hundreds of dollars.
That's
there was
not
also.
true.
Okay. Thank you for interrupting me. That's awful courteous.
Very much so.
Yeah. And, wanting to know why you're spending all this money on alcoholic beverages. And then there's
Again, that's another non-truth.
Okay. Well, there was a memo.
It sure is.
There's a memo here. So this memo is confirmed that Mayor Scott Jr. had a breakfast meeting with City Manager Bruce Moore April 16th regarding city business. No alcohol was purchased at this meeting.
Yes, that's because it's a city policy that if you don't have an itemized receipt, you have to make certain that you state that. So we follow correct
Right. So
city
how many
policy.
meetings do y'all drink at?
We don't drink at any meeting.
Right. So none of your expenses at Copper Grill are for alcohol.
Not at all.
Right.
You can look at all of our receipts.
Right.
Yeah.
But again,
You do like to look at receipts, so let's look at all the receipts.
Right. But I would say, with all the expense and the trouble that we have in the city, for you to go out and frivolously spend our money.
I'm not frivolously spending anything.
That's shitty.
Well, excuse yourself.
No, fuck you.
Officers, please excuse him right now, out of the city hall. He's out of city hall. And we won't have that anymore. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate you. Miss Loretta Hendricks.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Directors. My question is, how did he go before me? He's already been up here once already. And don't start me now. I want to know why he was called before me.
He was called before you because he had a different card.
All right. I'm Loretta Hendricks, and I am here because I wish to make this report. I am on that committee for governance study for the city of Little Rock, the best form of government. The town hall meetings were well attended. We all learned a great deal of information. And I just wanted to share with you guys, just in case you don't know, there were many issues, and some of them offered, don't worry about the best form of government, just fix it. Some offered issues as leadership, finances, city services and availability, communication centering around City Hall, women's rights, minority rights, and why not place announcements on the radio at drive times to let the city of Little Rock know when meetings are to be held, or when specially town hall meetings. Other comments as it doesn't really matter about the form of government, and this is where I will elaborate. I am one that believes that it does not matter about the form of government. What matters is that people who run for office have something to contribute. And we're not talking about contributing minor things. We're talking about actually contributing to the lifestyle of people's lives, their jobs, trying to bring corporations to the city, headquarters, as the young man just spoke of. I just don't know. I've been here a long time, Director Campiras, and I came back home with the intent of making Little Rock a great city. And I am dedicated to that, and I will do whatever it is I have to do, because I have spent so many years here, and I am quite dissatisfied with what I see. You guys have been here too long, and you guys need to really consider either doing what needs to be done for the city, or either we're going to have to do it for you guys. Change is needed in the city of Little Rock.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hendricks. Director Hendricks.
Thank you. The only reason why I got turned the light on is that I want to share with the board, and the reason why she called Dean's name. Dean and my daughter graduated from Hall High. She was the first black to graduate from Hall High. That's why she addressed Dean High School.
Thank you. Director Adcock.
Mine was from the other.
Yes, ma'am. Director Hines.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn. There's a second. Prior to that, Director Computers.
We got a memorandum about the deer hunting. Could we have the people from the Game and Fish come and talk with us so we can decide on what we want to do?
Yes, Mr. Moore, if you would reach out maybe to our friend Andrew Parker and kind of go through that. All right, there's been a motion and a second for the adjournment. Also want to again share with the board there will be a R3 Little Rock task force to look at the visioning for our parks as we move forward. We'll commission that task force here soon, and it will be inclusive on how we look at the future for all of our parks in our city. And I do appreciate everyone. Know it's been a tough few weeks. This is part of how we initiate policy, and I just want to make certain that the board knows how much I appreciate each one of you in this process. And I know it's been tough for the last few weeks, and I want to make certain everyone is aware of that. I'll ask Mr. Moore for that date. I think it's June the 24th. The next meeting for the governance study group is June 24th, and I do not know what. Emmanuel Baptist Church in West Little Rock. Mr. Moore, you had something before we adjourn?
We'll put this in the memo form, but we had talked about, we typically during the first week of July, if the board meeting is close to the 4th, which this one will be, that, and this works out well because we have 5 Tuesdays, so we would not meet on the 2nd, and then hold the first meeting on the first meeting of July on the 9th at 4 o'clock, which would normally be an agenda meeting, and then meet on the 16th for an agenda meeting at 4. And then we'll get the dates out, but we would meet the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, and the 30th, and the board meetings would be on the 9th and the 23rd, and the agenda meetings would be on the 16th and the 30th.
Thank you so much. So again, based on what we have decided that the Tuesday, July 2nd board meeting will be canceled. I hope everyone enjoys the lead up to our 4th of July holiday from that standpoint. All those in favor for adjournment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Meeting adjourned.